Okay, hello everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's happening? Excuse me. So, we have a lot of fun things to talk about today. We're gonna start off with a couple of fun little memes and things that I've found during this last week, and then we're going to, excuse me. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some election violence that happened in the 2022 midterms, as well as a little bit of background on those douchebags who were dressed up in tactical gear that were surveilling Arizona drop boxes. They're a group called Clean Elections USA. We'll be talking a little bit about them. And then we're going to end with making fun of Nick Fuentes for a little while. So, but first, before we get into that, please like and subscribe. Anybody out there who are watching, if you have not liked and subscribed already. And, yeah, let's jump right into it. So, this here is what we're working on. It's our little witch character, right? And I think we're, as far as the actual witch herself goes, it looks pretty good. So we're just sort of sketching out a kind of a background for it, right? Um, Thinking more of like like a sort of witch's hut kind of thing. Like maybe she's got like a stuffed, like, dragon up in the corner or something like that. And then like some unearthly, you know, instruments of beyond mortal comprehension, that kind of thing. So we'll just be slow. We'll just be like working on this sort of speed. I'm thinking like something like sort of speed paint style, and then maybe we'll refine it, make it look a little bit better. Let's turn on the shape dynamics there. Okay, so anyway, but before we get into all this, there's a couple things I want to show you guys. In fact, let me share my screen with you. So throughout the day, or throughout the week, I kind of like to take little screenshots of different memes and things that I see on, on Reddit, mostly on Reddit, because I try to avoid Twitter as much as possible because, fuck Twitter. And here's a few things that I thought were funny that I would like to share with you all. So let me just sort of turn that on, put that on top. This is something I found. This is from the Tennessee Holler, Butler County. Oh, wait a minute. That's not the right one that we wanted to look at. Sorry, we're coming back to that one later. This is from a tweet from a guy named Costi W. Hin. Some butthurt Republicans who are very angry that the midterms didn't go their way. Unbelieving Gen Z is hypersexualized, entitled, and view truth as relative. They want a free ride, abortions to wipe away responsibility and do as they please. In this wicked generation, preach the gospel again, again, and again. It is the only power that can save them. What really kind of stood out to me about this particular tweet here is like, first off, right, here's the first part, okay? Sexual, hypersexualized and entitled and view the truth as relative. Okay. That has been something that our parents' generation, especially the boomer generation, kind of specialized in. Like the boomers kind of like that's when the sexual revolution hit its peak, and you can argue that the sexual revolution began way back in the 1930s or whatever, right? With the kind of with the advent of mass media, but it didn't really hit its peak. It didn't like mainstream until the 60s and 70s. You know what I mean? Like till that sort of free love generation came. And here's the thing about it, folks, right? Everybody has always been hypersexualized. Like forever. That's just been a thing forever, even in all of those societies where, Puritans and shit like that, where they had all these rules and, men and women had to like sleep like 4 feet apart and stuff like that. Like even during those times, why do you think there was such a crackdown on sexuality during those repressive eras in our history, right? It's because human beings are sexual beings. It's what we are. We're sexual animals. People like to have sex. How do you think why there's so many goddamn people? Because everybody has sex, right? And so the thing is, during our parents' the boomer generation, especially the boomer generation, that was like, they revolted against all of that stuff. And now they've kind of turned around and they're, trying to say the same shit about the current generation of young people. It's kind of like what I said before, like in our last stream, where this idea that the kids today are just a bunch of lazy do for nothings is something that just happens with every new generation that pops up. You're never going to see, like, they're not going to be like, I don't know what comes after Generation Z, like what, Generation A? They're not going to be like, hey, Generation A is like, moral, upstanding, and hardworking. No, no, they're going to be like, they're a bunch of fucking, you know, lazy, good for nothing, hypersexualized kids as well. It's the same, like, criticism that gets levied at the younger generation over and over. So that's what I thought was kind of ironic because people were saying about, I mean, looking at the picture of this guy, Costi H. Hin, he looks like a Gen Xer. People were saying the same shit about us, right? Secondly, this second sentence, they want a free ride, abortions to wipe away responsibility, and to do as they please. Well, first off, the free ride thing is bullshit. That comes from, that whole idea that the kids are lazy and they're not making enough money, they're not contributing to the economy. You're seeing that all over the place when it comes to conservatives. They're always complaining about like, oh, like, Gen Z and Gen Y are not buying houses. They're not buying diamond rings. They're not investing in this or that. And it's like, it's because they don't make any money. It's not that someone who's 20, for example, doesn't want to own a house or doesn't want to own a car or doesn't want to buy a PlayStation 5 or something like it. It's not that they're like, you know, um, avoiding materialism or anything like that. That's bullshit. It's because the jobs they do have pay fucking minimum wage and it's not enough to buy any of those things. You know, give them $100,000 and they'll go buy a house and a car and all that other shit, just like anybody else. So that's the first thing. Secondly, abortions to wipe away responsibility. Like, well, yeah, kind of like how your generation had that as well. You know, like wipe. I don't. That whole attack against abortion, where you're just using it as a form of birth control. It's like, well, first off, no, that's bullshit. Nobody does that. You know. Secondly, it's none of your fucking business. So what? If you want to go have 20 kids and abort 20 of them, that should be your choice, right? Whose fucking business is it of yours to say anything about that? It isn't. Go fuck yourself. That's the right answer to that. You know, it's your body. You could do what you fucking please, right? Seriously. And that's coming to the last sentence. To do as they please. What's so wrong about doing as you please? I mean, the last time I checked, that's kind of what freedom was all about, being able to do whatever you please, isn't it? Isn't that what being an adult is kind of about? Being able to do what you want when you want it, when you want to, you know? I mean, as long as you're not hurting other people, right? If you want to go get a job, you want to, like, work your ass off for, whatever, this or that, so that you could buy diamonds and houses and shit, that's fine. If you want to not do those things, that is fine as well. If you want to find some other way to survive that doesn't have to do with you fucking like being a wage slave, there's nothing wrong with that either. If you feel like, I mean, that's kind of what being an adult is. You have that choice that you can live however the hell you want. If you want to go live off in the woods, that's your choice. If there actually are people who choose to not work and choose to be homeless or whatever for like spiritual reasons and shit. Like I saw this YouTube video about a guy that has like his own little cart and he has like sheep and he makes a living as a farmhand and like sort of homeless by choice. It's like, well, there you go. That's his choice. He wants to be a farmhand and walk around with sheep. that's the great thing about this country is that you're allowed to do those things, right? That's kind of what being an adult means. You know, when you're a child, you don't have the ability to do what you please, right? When you're a minor, when you live with your parents, right? You don't have that ability. You have to do what they tell you, right? And you don't have a choice. You have to go to school, right? You have to clean up your room. You have to brush your teeth. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to mow the lawn. You have to take out the trash. You have to clean cat box. Whatever. You have to do all of this shit. They tell you to fucking do it. You don't have a choice. When you're an adult, that's the whole idea. Is that no, it's my life. I'll do what I want. If I want to live in my house with my fucked up lawn and laundry all over the place, and right, then I'll do it if I feel like it. If I want to not go to school and not work, I'll deal with the consequences of that, but that's my choice. I'll do it if I feel like it, right? And as far as I'm concerned, that choice includes I'll do whatever I will imbibe whatever substances I want, and I will have sex with whoever I want. And if you don't like it, you can kiss my big hairy flabby butt cheeks. That's just the thing. The thing is, if you were to ask this guy Costi W. Hin, when he was the same age as Gen Z today, he would have told you the exact same shit. So, I just thought that shit was funny. It just seems to be, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Okay, this next one I saw here, this was congratulations to the Senate. I thought this was funny. Congratulations to the Senate Democrats. I saw this. This was on a conspiracy sub on Reddit, and I figured I would want to share this with you all here. Congratulations to the Senate Democrats for suddenly pulling ahead and winning surprise victories by the perfect margins 4 days after polls close in the dead of night. Only in states with mail-in voting. For the second time in a row, we'd never seen anything like it in 244 years. Excuse me. Yeah, well, that's kind of what happens when you have mail-in voting and you pass a law that says you're not allowed to count them until, election day, then you don't get results for like 4 days after the polls close. That's kind of what happens. See, this is a conspiracy that we're seeing in Arizona that has to do with, they're winning the Senate there, and then also like Kerry Lake losing, and then a couple of other places like Dr. Oz losing. Basically all of the MAGA Republicans who lost like in this last midterms, right? And if you go on I think this was on Reddit, but if you go on like conservative Twitter or like fucking Parler or Getter or whatever the fuck they have, right? There's all of these conspiracy theories flying around that the election was stolen and all this other shit. And it's like, it's kind of hard like if you just think about it for 2.5 seconds, it kind of falls apart. Like, first off, if the Democrats stole the election, well, they just lost control of the House of Representatives. So why would they not steal also the House of Representatives, right? Like, for example, Lauren Boebert won, which means that now I don't have to believe in God because, last week I made a pledge that if she were to lose the election, then I'd like start believing in God. Just kind of proved to me that there is no God, that she didn't win. So, there you go. Right? That she won her election. That proves that the universe is a cruel place that is not presided over by any benevolent deity. At least not one that gives a shit about us. Maybe there is a God and he's just punishing us all by having Lauren Boebert still be a House rep. But anyway, so how come they didn't do that? How come they didn't just go for a clean sweep, huh? I mean, if they're going to steal the Senate, they have control of the Senate by one person, one vote. Why not steal it all the way so that they have 10 votes? That way they can get around any of the Republican filibusters. You would think if you were going to steal election, you would think you would steal it properly, right? Secondly, in states such as Arizona, it took a week for results to come in because in 2020 the Republicans passed a law that said you're not allowed to count mail-in ballots until election day. They did that on purpose so that they could slow down the count, right? Because when you slow down the count, you give more time, and it looks like you're gonna lose, right? So this is what they were predicting. This was the plan, okay? They knew that they may lose in 2022 and 2024. So if you slow down the count, that allows the Republican who's losing the count to file lawsuits and try to get that count stopped. And that was the plan. The plan was that if Carrie Lake, for example, were ahead of Hobbs, right? Like say by 1,000 votes or something. If she were like ahead in the counting, then she would have sued to stop the count. And she would have sued and said, "Hey, this is taking too long. There should be a reasonable amount of time that, we have a reasonable expectation that they should finish the counting in this amount of time, et cetera, et cetera." And then they would get a Republican judge that Trump appointed in order to stop the count, and then she'd win. That's the plan. That's why they did it like that. And it just so happened this time it didn't work because Hobbs had more votes, right? So they couldn't use that. They couldn't use that plan because if they stop the count, that means Hobbs wins. So they had to wait until all the results were in the hope that she pulled ahead, and Carrie Lake didn't pull ahead. So there you go. Plan didn't work, right? In fact, your plan fucking backfired. And if you would have allowed them to count the stupid votes ahead of time, we would have known what the results were that same day. The same like in California has, drop off box voting. They have mail-in ballots and they have drop boxes and stuff like that. Didn't take fucking 2 weeks to get results in California, did it? No, because they count them ahead of time. So that way, when it comes to and they keep that count secret. So that way, when it comes to the time for the election day, they're like ready to go. So there you go, Republicans. Good fucking plan, morons. Right? Of course, now they have to frame it like it's a conspiracy. That's the whole idea. Oh, in the dead of night, only with states in mail-in voting. Yeah, it's like, no, put two and two together, you fucking idiots. For the second time in a row. Yeah, like they're making it like some big ass conspiracy that like there's all these busloads of Democratic operatives going around and dumping fake mail-in ballots. Get the fuck out of my face. Fucking morons. Anyway. So, let me see. Can you guys still hear me? I'm like paranoid now that my sound is going to cut out, so I'm checking every 5 minutes. Let's see here. This is one from Reddit. This is from, somebody posted this, well, I guess it's from Twitter, but they posted it on Reddit. Wall Street Apes. Okay. Actually, I don't think this is from Twitter. I think this is probably from, one of the Twitter ripoffs here, because it's got a red check mark instead of a blue one, but I don't know. The election should be off. It was just proven that the Democrats just laundered money through a Ukraine war fund into FTX and were then given back the money as donations to fund their campaigns. The military should move in, arrest the traitors, arrest everyone involved. The story should be told to the world, and then we can have elections. This is as serious as it gets. Treason, hashtag money laundering. So, what's the story behind this one, folks, right? Sorry, my ear was itching there for a second. So, FTX is a cryptocurrency that there was an FTX exchange run by some guy, I can't remember his name. And basically what happened is that this dude, let me look up his name because I can't just be like this dude, this guy, let me find out. Who the fuck was the FTX guy, right? FTX scandal. Let's see. FTX scandal. Crypto scandal. So, let's see. It was basically so the creator of FTX was a dude named let's see, where can I find his name here? Nope, that's not the right one. Let me just go back to, oh my god, fuck you. There you go. Alright, sorry about that. FTX scandal. This is a crypto, right? Yeah, so the FTX was a cryptocurrency exchange, right? and basically the CEO, his name was Sam Bankman. That's his name, Sam Bankman-Fried. Okay, so what happened is that Sam Bankman-Fried was this, and this is what this guy looks like. Here, let me just show it to you. This is the CEO of FTX, cryptocurrency exchange thing, right? Yeah, this guy. This is the guy that people gave their life savings to. Right. And what happened is that he ran this cryptocurrency exchange. I'm just going to sum it up. We're not going to go too much into this. And then he had another company that like was doing some investments in like the wall in the stock market or some shit like that. And long story short, he took people's deposits that they made through his exchange, through FTX exchange, and then invested it into this other company that he owned and basically lost everybody's money. And then he just sort of bailed and went to the Bahamas and now is just sort of like chilling there saying, yeah, do something. That's basically what happened, right? So yeah, Sam Beckman Fried. It might be a good idea. Maybe we'll do a stream on this, depending if the story sticks around or not. But long story short, it's a lesson of what happens when you don't have any banking regulations, right? There are really very little regulations when it comes to cryptocurrency exchanges like that. And yeah, he basically just stole all of his customers' money and then just took off, fled the country, after like losing like billions and billions of dollars, right? And it has evolved into this conspiracy theory on the right wing that somehow, right, all of that money went to Ukraine somehow, and then the people in Ukraine, like Zelensky, used it as campaign donations for Democrats, and then that's why Democrats won the election. It's like, first off, there is zero proof for this shit. Absolute zero proof. It's 100% made up bullshit, right? It's a good way of and you know what this is? This is like fucking Russian disinformation at work. I guarantee you this story came from fucking like the Kremlin. It came from like Russian disinformation bulls, like trolls and bots and shit, trying to, drum up fucking hate and fear in the United States and division in the United States. It's exactly what it fucking is. So, and it's just funny how fast conspiracy theories and shit like this evolve. I mean, the whole FTX thing only happened like, last week. Right. Anyway, so yeah, just keep your eyes open for this, folks. It's an evolving conspiracy theory, and you'll be seeing during the next election plenty of people like with signs that say hashtag FTX Ukraine impeach Biden. You'll be seeing that a lot. Okay, this one was really funny. This is QAnon is kind of turning against Donald Trump. I don't know if you guys heard about that. So let's read this, right? This is from Brian Trump 4. And I think this is on Truth Social, maybe? I don't know where this came from. I like the Punisher America skull and the arrow there, which is funny because, in the comics, the Punisher fucking hates people like this. Anyway, he set it up to appear like he's announcing his 2024 campaign. Every normie, every news station believes this will be it, but to me, that would be a huge letdown. After 2020, he preached for months how the election was rigged and that we can't let that stand. Clearly, the voting procedures have not been fixed. We are witnessing a repeat of 2020. And Trump is calling it out again, saying we can't let it stand. If he announces a 2024 run right now, how on earth are we to expect the election won't be another one like this? If he announces, especially right now, it is in essence him conceding not only 2020 but also 2022. The thing that this guy is experiencing is called cognitive dissonance. That's when reality does not match up with what you believe to be reality, and you are forced to reassess reality on your own. At least that's what I hope that means. That is what that means, right? I didn't just like completely make a fool of myself, didn't I? Cognitive dissonance. I think so. State of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. Yes, okay, that's exactly what it is. Okay, you know. So, right. I remember my 11th grade psychology class. Okay, good. Anyway, that's what this guy is experiencing. He's getting sensory input that is telling him that reality is not what he believes reality to actually be. And kind of this surprisingly seems to be happening a lot with lots of different Q people, right? Seeing this, lots of and it's funny because like the QAnon thing sort of sprang up in, I mean, it was already sort of there. The roots of it were there before Trumpism, and it's sort of like a cult now. It's sprung up around Donald Trump, and every time say the every time like say the Jehovah's Witnesses or something make a failed prediction about the end of the world, a few of the people drop off, you know. Like that's using them as an example because the Jehovah's Witnesses have a history of making failed rapture end of the world predictions. They predicted it in 1917, and then that didn't happen, and then they did it again in 1974, and etc. etc. And each time one of those milestones goes by and the world doesn't end, a bunch of people quit and they go, "This is it. I've been lied to." Blah blah blah. But not all of them. There's always a group of people that sort of hang out behind, and their belief intensifies. They double down on the belief. That's the most so when people get that cognitive dissonance, when they get confronted with evidence that shows what they believe is not true, and they're forced into that cognitive dissonance state of mind, the most common reaction is to double down. I don't believe it. I don't believe what I'm seeing. This must be a trick. It must be there must be an explanation for it. It can't be true. And then they come up with some ridiculous fucking reason. It's like, well, so here you go. Here goes a guy that, if he, an example of that. Is this guy going to leave the QAnon cult, or is he going to, come up with an excuse? 9 times out of 10, all they need is an explanation as to why it didn't happen. And they'll be right back in there. So, but I think that's funny. It's good. It's like you see them every time the storm is coming, and then the storm doesn't come, and then a few people quit, a few people leave, and it just sort of peels off slower and slower, and eventually that's how movements die out. So let's hope so. Let's hope that when 2024 comes around, Trump doesn't have QAnon behind him. It would be a great asset to the country if that cult were to be dead by then. So one can only hope, right? I thought that was interesting. One more of these before we move on. This is hilarious. This is an example here. I pointed this one out because this is an example of what happens when you basically get high off your own supply. Right. Rose Rock. Bolsonaro just annulled the fraudulent election in Brazil. With the help of the military and waves of millions upon millions of pissed off citizens in every city in Brazil, it looks like the socialist fraud Lula will be vacating the presidency. In fact, there are rumors that he could be facing another prison sentence. The military was in charge of the recount, and they just found that each election machine in Brazil had been switching votes from Bolsonaro to Lula, just as the machines were programmed to do in our country with votes switched from Trump to Biden. The only difference is that the Brazilians had the balls to do something about the fraud. If only our U.S. citizens were this courageous. Land of the free and home of the brave, what a laughingstock and joke we are to the rest of the world. This was news to me. I did not know there was a coup in Brazil. And sure enough, there was not. So any of you watching, please do not be afraid. There was not a coup in Brazil. Bolsonaro did not use the military to take over the government and oust Lula. That did not happen. This guy is spreading misinformation. Here's the thing about that. It would have took literally 1 second of Googling. Just go into Google, type in Brazil, and you would see that a military coup had not occurred there. This guy, Rose Rock, whoever he is, couldn't even be bothered to do that, you know. And that's why I thought this was interesting. He just believed it immediately. He saw somebody told him this, right? He was in some kind of like chat room or news group or on fucking Parlor or something, right? And saw this. Somebody posted this bullshit, and he just immediately went back to Facebook or whatever and reposted it. Immediately went to. I guess this is what Twitter here or whatever, and immediately reposted. No fact checking. No, no. Just turn on the TV, and the news will tell you military coup in Brazil. That would be big news if that happened. Even in this country, it'd be fucking huge news, right? Didn't happen at all. Just so either this guy is lying on purpose, or most likely he's just fucking lazy. And that's why people believe in conspiracy theories. That's why conspiracy theories get around, because people don't do basic fucking fact checking. Literally 1 second to verify if this was real or not, you know? That almost becomes part of the conspiracy. Like when you get really deep into conspiracy theories, right? When you're really deep into that culture, especially on the right wing, you see this on the left wing too, but when you get down into that right wing conspiracy theory hellhole, it becomes part, like the media that tells you these things are not true become part of the conspiracy. It's like, how many times have you seen MSM, mainstream media? You can't trust the mainstream media, right? They tell lies. The mainstream media tells lies, right? Why? Because the mainstream media, that is the media that actually fact checks things and tries to report the truth when they can, debunks conspiracy theories like this. And that was a thing that Trump really tapped into. Every single fucking rally that Trump has, he gets up and he points at the cameras and the media and says, "Those are your enemy. The media is your enemy. Those guys back there hate me." Shit like that. They say bad things about me. They say untrue bad things. Shit like that. He always trying to blame the media for making Republicans look bad. That's actually been a thing for decades, by the way, where the Republicans have been claiming that the media has a liberal bias. I mean, as long as I can remember, GOP and Republican politicians and pundits and shit, conservative pundits have been using that sort of the media has a liberal bias thing, right? As a way to kind of, circumvent their fact checking. And that's what it really is. It's the reason why that narrative exists is because they tell lies, and then people go to, the news networks, and they go to the newspapers, and they go to magazines like Rolling Stone and shit like that, and then they read the opposite of what the politicians and the conservative pundits say, and they go, "Hey, you guys are lying," so they have to spin it. "Oh no, the mainstream media is lying to you. We're telling you the real truth. We're giving you the real facts." You know, what's the Fox News motto? Fair and what is it Fair and balanced. That's where that whole fucking thing comes from. So that's just I wanted to. This just really blew me away because it's like this guy must live in the tightest of conservative bubbles. You must talk to nobody that doesn't agree with everything that he says, and that's another thing we should all be aware of. That we all exist in bubbles, folks. Right? Let's go ahead and turn this off for now. I have a couple of other images back here, but we'll get to those later. We should all be aware of that, folks. Right? We exist in bubbles just like anybody else. Something to be, to make sure that you want to make sure that you're not, in that echo chamber. Right? And I always try to. I mean, in my personal life, there are people that, I mean, I don't have a lot of like conservative friends and stuff like that, but I do have a few, you know, that have ideas that are different than mine, and I try to, you know, not isolate them. You know what I'm saying? And at the very least, you can listen to what somebody's saying. If you don't like, you don't have to agree 100% with all of your friends and all of your family and all that. You know, of course, there are things that are deal breakers. You know, racism, for example, is a deal breaker for me. And I don't associate with racists in my personal life. I just don't at all. If I meet somebody and they're a racist, I don't hang out with them. Sorry. And you know, a couple of other there are a few deal breakers like that. But for the most part, most people are generally cool, you know, even if they don't 100% align with everything that you say politically. And I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy to have friends and family that have differing political ideals. So you don't fall into exactly what this dude in this fucking screenshot, you know, so you don't fall into that. So you don't immediately believe shit when you hear it. Because misinformation also targets people on the left. Although people on the left are not as susceptible to misinformation because they tend to chat to like fact check things, and that's just the truth. There's more fact checking, you know, like there was a study in 2016 about how misinformation spreads from the left to the right, you know, and it was basically focusing on the effectiveness of those Russian troll bots, you know, like they would post a fake story about Hillary Clinton or something, and then a fake story about Trump, and the Hillary Clinton fake stories got way more magnification, and the ones about Trump would die out. And it was like, why? Because the people on the left would fact check stuff and then be like, oh, here's a story about Trump eating babies. Is that true? And then they would go fact check it, and be like, oh, it's not true. You know, whereas like, you know, the on the right wing, if they just hear anything negative about Hillary at all, they would just immediately like spread that around like crazy. Hillary's eating babies. She's drinking their adrenochrome, crap like that. Right? And it's like, why? Because people on the left fucking fact check things. People on the left actually, you know, when they post stuff, when they believe things, they tend to want the things they believe to actually be true. I mean, I do. I don't know about you guys. I do. When I hear something, I like it to actually be right and correct and true before I go around and believe it, for example. I think a lot of that has to do with religion as well. The more religious you are, it seems like the more likely you are to fall for um, conspiracy theories, to fall for misinformation. More likely you are to believe in things like, say, you know, like urine therapy or shit like that. You know what I mean? Like the more religious you are, the more. And you know, when I say religious, it's not just Christianity. Like, you know, you also have like new age kind of stuff as well. That seems to be more of like a when you talk about religious people on like from the left wing, it seems to be more of a new age thing. Like you get these like wine moms and stuff that believe in essential oils and shit like that. That seems to be more like from a left wing kind of thing, like especially when it comes to like health woo, you know. And from a right, like from the right side, the right wing, it's more Christianity, obviously, you know. The power of Jesus compels you. Just pray real hard, and your kid will no longer have diabetes or whatever. You know what I mean? Or another, especially when it's, say, for example, when it came to like COVID-19, you know, cures and stuff like that. Like, you know, people on the left tended to not believe the bullshit ivermectin, like, you know, and other fucking phony baloney cures. You know what I mean? Like rubbing horse paste in your fucking armpits and shit like that. That seemed to come from the right wing a lot more than the left wing because people on the left fact check stuff. They believe doctors when doctors say this is bullshit. They believe them when they, you know, because they fucking, I don't know. Is it because people on the left are more intelligent, or is it because people on the left are less? I don't think that's because they're more intelligent. There's plenty of stupid people on the left wing. I think it really comes down to more of a, you know, a less like there's less fanaticism I guess is what it is. When you're a fanatic, when you like sort of base your identity around things like your religion and your political ideology, then you're more likely to believe something hook, line, and sinker when you hear it coming from certain channels. If your pastor tells you something and you're super religious, then you're more likely to just believe what your pastor says rather than what you hear on the news. Your pastor says to you, "Oh, there's fentanyl in the Halloween candy. Don't bring your kids out." And then you go on the news, and it's like, say it's like ABC or something, right? Or Channel 5 News, whatever. And they're like, "No, this is just something that you just made up, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about it." Well, if you're super religious, you're going to believe your pastor. You're going to be like, "Well, God is talking to this guy. He's telling me not to bring my kid out to get the fentanyl lace Smarties or whatever." You know what I mean? So, anyway. So, I wanted to share those things with you. I thought those things were funny. What time is it? 11:41. I wanted to move on a little bit to, we're still sort of in the tail end of the 2022 elections. Still kind of talking about that a little. Kind of getting through the I guess you would say ramifications of that election, right? Before it gets too far away, there is something else I wanted to talk about, and that is election violence. Because, one thing I'm seeing in the conservative circles I lurk in is that they're trying to claim that this cycle went by and it was relatively violence free. And it was for the most part, but it wasn't 100% violence free. We definitely did see a little bit in the way of intimidation, and there actually was some straight out violence. There was straight out fucking election violence. In fact, there was one story I wanted to share with you guys here that had to do with, it was, what was it? Hang on a second. Firebomb. Democratic. Okay. Here we go. This was from May 27th, 2022. This is from the AP News. I'll just go ahead and put this down in the chat for you guys. This is one of the things I wanted to share with you first before we, if we're talking about election violence, right? Guilty plea in plot to firebomb California Democratic HQ. So, yep, this was back in May. Right, this happened. California man pleaded guilty Friday to plotting to blow up the state Democratic Party's headquarters in what prosecutors said was the first planned series of politically motivated attacks to defeat the former President Donald Trump. Right. So basically, long story short, this guy, 46 years old, throws a couple of Molotov cocktails at the Democratic HQ, right, in Sacramento, California. Let's see. Copeland, 38, previously pleaded guilty to conspiracy, destruction of rectors. "I want to blow up a Democrat building bad." Right. So, Rogers Vote, one of the messages apps he used to communicate with Copeland. In a different message, he said that after Democratic President Joe Biden was inaugurated, we go to war. So, just wanted to show you. They also found 50 firearms on this guy, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and 5 pipe bombs. So, yeah. Were there any examples of Democrats found with firebomb, like bomb-making materials and tons of guns and things like that? Nope. Not really, right? There was another video where was it? In Texas, right? Let me see. There was a video in Texas of a guy. Here we go. This was one that, wait, when was this? Is this the one that I was thinking of? Yeah. Here we go. I'll put this down in the chat for you guys as well. Another one, right? And let's turn that back on. Man arrested after surveillance footage shows suspect with model of cocktail at Travis County Democratic Party HQ. Right. I'm not gonna play this video, but basically, long story short, it's this. This guy shows up, tries to throw a. Well, I guess we can play this, but I don't want there to be any sound. Um, let's just fast forward. Where's the actual video? Oh, it's not showing the video. This is just a cop talking about it. Okay, we don't have to hear about that. Long story short, this guy here shows up in. This is in Austin, Texas. Shows up with a model of cocktail, tries to smash in the window of a Democratic headquarters, voting headquarters, throws the model of cocktail inside. Of course, it doesn't explode because, you know, he's incompetent as fuck. Let's go ahead and turn that off. And he gets thrown in prison. Two examples there. Very similar actions, each in two completely different states. One of them in Texas, one in California. Apparently conservatives really like their model of cocktails, huh? Of course, we all heard about the madman that went in and attacked Paul Pelosi. I mean, did an entire stream on that. That's probably the biggest example of conservative violence before the election, right? A couple more you may not have heard about. Here's a guy. This is from the Miami Herald. I will... You must turn off your ad blocking. Ah, fuck you. See, what's the point of having ad blocking software if you fucking every site you go to is gonna like make you turn the shit off? You know what I mean? Anyway, and then I got like 50 billion ads. Let me turn all the fucking ads off. So this here is from the Miami Herald. Go ahead and turn that on. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, good. Trump supporter convicted of shooting at men after argument over Biden flag on jet ski. So you can kind of see, I think there's a video here. Why don't we go ahead and play this? I will, let's turn up the sound. And let's rewind that. I think it's a minute long. So, apparently the guy screaming is yelling at them because they're Trump supporters. Right, or because they're Biden supporters, excuse me, right? Okay. You know, what's the point of filming a fight if you're not going to actually film the fight? Anyway, I don't think this video actually shows the shooting. Long story short, a couple of guys were on a jet ski in Miami. They go up to this little island. There's a guy in the island who is a Trump supporter. Trump supporter gets pissed at men on Biden jet ski, yells at them. A fight ensues like you just saw right there. Then Trump supporter gets a pistol, comes out and shoots at the two guys on the Biden jet ski, the jet ski with the Biden flag. Because apparently that's what you do when you're in Miami. You just shoot people who vote for the other guy that you don't support. I thought this was really funny because listen to the excuse that the guy had for shooting. Right, so here's what happened. Triggered by the flag, prosecutor said Acosta began to argue with the man, claiming that anyone who supported Biden was a child molester. The insult originates from an unfounded QAnon conspiracy theory that a deep state group of child sex traffickers were secretly working to defeat Trump. So, yep. Here we go. There's a direct line from, you know, the QAnon conspiracy theory insane people crowd, you know, right to this act of violence right here. And then there's video. So basically a guy lunged at him and then people hold him back. According to testimony, Acosta came back later armed with a handgun, shooting at the men as they jumped on their jet ski and zoomed off. The two victims fell into the water as a bullet whizzed overhead. Luckily, neither of them were harmed. Okay, don't come back to this island. I'm going to kill you, he said in Spanish. I guess that's on the video. Here's his excuse for shooting at these two men with a Biden flag on their jet ski. Defense attorney Eric Matheny argued Acosta had grabbed his gun because he was fearful of the two men who had been acting erratically after they came onto the island. He was afraid of them, even though The video shows him berating and attacking those two guys so much that his friends had to hold them back. He's claiming he was afraid of them. He was afraid that the Joe Biden guys were going to come beat his ass or something. So that's why he went and got his gun. Matheny told jurors the gun went off accidentally as he was on his jet ski. His jet ski hit a rough patch of water, and the shock of the impact caused his hand to slip, and the tip of his index finger caught the trigger and fired him round into the water. Oh, it was just an accident. I didn't mean to shoot at him. I was afraid these two guys on their jet ski, were coming to beat the crap out of me. Even though I was with a bunch of friends, even though I had enough friends to hold me back, obviously we had more people than they did. And so I figured I would just scare them with my gun. And it just, it was just the waves. The waves were choppy. I didn't mean to shoot and kill them, Your Honor. Yep, there you go, folks. That's, here's another one. This is the one that I wanted to show you guys earlier that I accidentally showed you before. This is from the Tennessee Holler. My neighbor just shot my dad because he thought he was a Democrat. The killer, 26, has been charged with murder. Anthony King was 43 years old. What's the story behind this one, huh? Well, here's a video on this. Let me just pause that. And we can watch this. Let's actually watch this video because it's really not that long. It's about a minute or so. Let's turn that up.
So my neighbor just shot my dad.
43-year-old Anthony King was shot and killed. Police believe King's neighbor, 26-year-old Austin Combs, is the one who pulled the trigger.
Do you guys have problems with your neighbor?
Yes, he's come over multiple times making statements.
Dispatchers turned to ensuring King's son and wife, both at home, remain safe.
Is there anyone else in the household with you?
No, just us two.
Just you two. Stay inside the house. Keep the doors locked. I know that's hard for you to accept right now, but I need to make sure you two are safe.
The victim's wife said she had just finished mowing.
And I was letting my dog out, and I heard shots, and I said to my son, what the heck was that? And I look in the backyard, and that man's walking away from my husband.
She told dispatchers this isn't the first time that they've run into Combs. Those issues have stemmed from a perceived political affiliation.
He's come over like 4 times confronting my husband because he thought he was a Democrat. Why? Why? Please.
Okay,
I don't understand.
Combs has been charged with murder. He's being held here at the Butler County Jail on $950,000 bond. In Hamilton, Jake Ryle, WCPO 9 News.
Yeah, pretty messed up, folks. I mean, we don't know the full story. Maybe there was some prior history between these guys. It seems rather odd to me that somebody would just show up and murder you because you're a Democrat. But then you go and you read about, you read all of these QAnon conspiracy theories and shit like that. And then it becomes, not so odd. I mean, it kind of makes perfect sense that someone who is, insane, right, let's go ahead and turn this off for now, and who thinks that every single, Democrat out there is a baby killing cannibal, baby raping, baby killing cannibal that's drinking that's importing children from the Dominican Republic and drinking their fucking brain juice and worshiping Satan. Makes perfect sense if such a person that believed things like that had a gun and then saw a neighbor who put a sign saying that they were going to vote for one of these people, may fly off the handle and go over and kill them. That sounds exactly plausible and completely plausible to me, I mean, in any sane world, no. But we don't live in a sane world. We live in a world where one political party is basically like stoking hate and fear and using using these things in order to demonize their opponents and spread lies about them, right? And, unhinged individuals latch on to shit like this, right? That's just what our life is like now, folks. This is what's happened when we allow the people that have no integrity to have too much power. This is what happens when you don't vote, when you don't have regulations. You notice shit like this wasn't really a thing before, like back in the day, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. You didn't have like deranged fucking cultists going on murder sprees like this, or if it did happen, it was like a very rare thing. Like, why is that? It's because it was by law back then. You had to have a balanced media. You had the fairness doctrine, right? You weren't allowed to have editorials in your media that like were so incredibly like one-sided. You had to, if like say a news channel, not for a news station, like you could do it, in other aspects. You could make a documentary or something. But if you had a news channel and a news broadcast, you had to show both sides of an issue. That was the law for decades, not just for like it was the law for like a fucking like 40 years, something like that. I mean, I'm not sure when the fairness doctrine started, but a very, very long time. I'll have to look up exactly how long. Right. And that went away because of Republicans. Republicans got rid of that. Ronald Reagan got rid of that, on the grounds of like free speech and shit like that. A corporation should have free speech. That was the whole rationale behind that, right? And this is what happens, when you give corporations free speech, right? They encourage the speech that makes them money. Well, what makes them money more than, pushing a bunch of idiotic right-wing conspiracy theories so that the fucking, like, Christian conservatives will vote for them so that they can turn around and cut taxes. That's what's making them money, right? Side effect of that is that deranged, insane people think all of the shit they say is true. And lo and behold, now we have people murdering you in Ohio just for being a Democrat, right? Did any of the conservative news channels cover this story? Nope. Was it on Fox? Nope. Was it on Newsmax? Nope. Did Alex Jones talk about it? Nope. Right? Did the people on Parler or Getter or True Social or fucking, whatever other, like, conservative dick-sucking app is out there, did they talk about that story? No, they did not. They did not talk about it because those people are not interested in the truth. They're only interested in what gets them money and power. And let's be honest, a lot of conservatives are actually okay with the idea of shooting Democrats. They are. This is why Kyle Rittenhouse got a free internship with fucking Matt Gaetz. I think, was it Matt Gaetz? Kyle Rittenhouse just got a free internship. Let me look that up. I'm not sure. It was either with Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene. So let's see. Kyle Rittenhouse internship. There we go. Matt Gaetz says his office might offer Kyle Rittenhouse a job. From the Washington Post. I'm not going to open this up, but I'll put it down here for you guys. You can read it later. So, yeah, that's why, they're giving Kyle Rittenhouse a job. There goes the link for you guys. Why would Matt Gaetz want to give Kyle Rittenhouse a job? I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse is what, 20? Something like that? Didn't even really go to college, I don't think. Right? What is he famous? He's famous because he killed 2 liberals. That's his claim to fame. He went out looking for trouble with a gun that he shouldn't have owned because he was too fucking young to have it, right? And, went out and played fucking vigilante, which he should be in fucking jail for, and shot 2 people and killed them and got off. And Republicans like that. Why? Because Republicans are violent assholes. who don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about your rights. They don't care about, anything that you want. And they don't give a shit about democracy. And they have no compunction taking your rights away and using force to do so. Right? That's why Kyle Rittenhouse has now got a cushy job as an intern. Probably getting paid. Most interns, they don't pay. They're probably paying Kyle Rittenhouse. Right? And that's why Kyle Rittenhouse is going to, probably be a fucking senator one day. Senator fucking, Senator fucking murderer. Senator fucking school shooter. That's going to be his name. Fucking asshole. Fuck Kyle Rittenhouse. Seriously. Fuck Kyle Rittenhouse. Guy's a piece of shit. Gets up there on the fucking witness stand and cries, I didn't want to do it. I didn't mean to do it. Turns around and parlays that same thing into fucking right-wing influencer status. What a piece of shit. He's profiting. That's why, that's the thing about Kyle Rittenhouse, all right? He's profiting off of his notoriety. Notoriety. I can never pronounce that fucking word. Notoriety. He's profiting off of that. The fact that he killed 2 fucking people that he was so sorry for. I didn't really want to do it. Yeah, he's got no problem fucking making money off of the deaths of those 2 fucking people. What a piece of shit. And everybody who likes Kyle Rittenhouse, you're a piece of shit too. Seriously, you are. If you sit here and if you think that's okay, if you think it's alright for a guy to go out looking for trouble with a gun, a person who's not a police officer, who's too young to own a gun, and shouldn't fucking have it, had to get his friend fucking buy it for him because he wasn't allowed to fucking own it because he was a minor. Minors should not be allowed to own fucking weapons, right? Goes out and shoots 2 fucking people when he's not a police officer. He's not even a cop. That's the thing. If he was a police officer, he'd be like, well, at least he's a cop. Maybe these guys... No, he's not even a police officer. No. You can't even use that, they weren't obeying the law shit defense. He was a normal fucking person. He's a civilian. And if you or me went out and shot 2 fucking, MAGA chuds, they would have... That's the thing, is that they didn't even arrest him, right? If I went to a protest and I shot 2 fucking MAGA assholes, they'd probably just kill me. In fact, that's what happened to Michael Rienal. You remember Michael Rienal? He was the left-wing equivalent of Kyle Rittenhouse, right? Michael Rienal says that he was at a protest, says that he saw a guy beating the crap out of somebody, went up, tried to stop him, shot him, right? The cops didn't bother arresting him. The cops just blew him away. And then Donald Trump bragged about it the next day. And then all of the fucking, all of the MAGA chud assholes and fucking, right-wing, fucking alt-right douchebags cheered that, celebrated this guy's death. He didn't get a trial, right? He didn't get to go up on the witness stand and cry and say, I didn't mean to do it, they forced me. They just executed him. Nobody gave a fuck. That's the difference. Okay, that's the difference between left-wing violence and none of the senators or House reps or politicians or governors from the Democratic Party tried to elevate Michael Rienal and say that he was a hero, right? No, he didn't. Nobody fucking did that at all on our side. That's the fucking difference, right? When right-wingers kill people, they get support, That's why after Charlottesville and during the George Floyd protests in 2020, right? That's why 6 states tried to make it legal to run over protesters. Right? I can't name them off the top of my head. I know Oklahoma's in there. Right? It's basically 6 red states, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, and 3 more. Tried to make it legal to run over protesters because, they're a bunch of, commie defeatists, baby rapers who are out there stopping traffic. And obviously, if you're stopping traffic, that means it should be legal to just fucking kill you, right? I wish I was making that up, but I'm not. I've put that out in streams a million times, so I'm not gonna look that up, but. If anybody wants to know, just search on Google for, legal, search for, legalize run over protesters and you'll get a list. So, goddamn, I don't know. You know, even now, even today, you still get people who try to claim that both sides are the same and all that. And you know, and here's the thing: there are examples of left-wing violence, right? You know, the guy that went and shot up Steve Scalise at that ball game, for example. That's an example, right? And then recently there was a dude who like ran somebody over because he like an older guy ran over this like 20-year-old kid because he claimed that they were gonna like jump him or whatever. And who knows if that's actually true or not, right? Every once in a while that happens, and you do get examples of violence from the left wing, or from somebody who, I wouldn't even say left wing, but somebody who you could say is, a liberal or a progressive, right? The difference is that the liberal and progressives don't embrace those people. They condemn them. They rightfully so condemn them because violence is wrong. You're not allowed to just kill people, and when you do, you shouldn't just fucking get away with it. And that's the difference. Whenever it happens on the right wing, they celebrate it, right? Kyle Rittenhouse kills somebody, they fucking celebrate it. Okay, when these like insane people go on, Gab and shit like that, there's people celebrating this stuff. When a fucking madman goes and like tries to murder Nancy Pelosi and bashes her husband's head in, they make jokes about it. They celebrate it. Charlie Kirk says somebody should fucking like bail him out, calling the guy a fucking hero. That doesn't happen on the left side. It doesn't happen when for liberals and progressives and Democrats. We don't fucking do that because that shit's wrong, and that's the difference between us and them, right? That's the major fucking difference there, right? These people don't have integrity. They don't give a fuck about you, and they don't care about your rights, And if they take power, they will impose upon us what they want us to think, what they want us to believe, right? And they'll use violence to maintain that. And I think that's a pretty good segue into what I want to talk about next, right? Because we had this story in Arizona, right, of a group called Clean Elections USA. So who are these guys, right? Clean Elections USA, if you remember, in the midterms, there was a group of basically armed poll watchers, right? People with rifles and handguns, dressed up in tactical gear with tactical, like, military-style headgear on, like masks, so that you couldn't see who they were. And they were all around different poll stations and like drop-off boxes and things in Arizona. And they were taking pictures of people, in some cases following people back to their cars. In at least one case, they followed a woman all the way back to her house when she went to go vote. When people went to go drop off their votes in a drop box. Why am I detailing this? I should actually be drawing... I should probably sketch out the rest of the room behind this before I start detailing stuff, don't you think? Yeah, why don't we do that? So, but in one case, these guys went and, followed a woman all the way back to her house, where she was living and stuff, right? And because she had the audacity to go vote. And here's the thing, right? This became, there were some lawsuits to try to stop these guys because that should be illegal. In fact, it is illegal, like at a federal level. You're not, like, voter intimidation is something that you should go to prison for, right? But a Republican judge, a Trump judge, said that, it was A-okay as long as these guys were, I think, if they were 75 feet away from the polls, then it was all right. And then there was a lawsuit that the judge finally like said, okay, well, you have to be something like 250 feet away from the drop box, from the polls, right? In this case, the drop box and a poll are the same thing, because that is against the law, Because if that wasn't voter intimidation, if that wasn't a thing, like the whole reason why that's against the law is because back in the day, back in the fucking 1800s and shit, right? basically, there'd be an election, and then one guy would hire a bunch of thugs to go hang out next to the polling place, and they'd be like, "Who'd you vote for?" And if you gave them the wrong answer, they'd beat the crap out of you, right? So that became, so they had to pass a law to stop that from happening. There's a reason why we have these laws. It's because that's how it happened in the past. Elections have always been dirty. If you guys realize that, all of these regulations we have about like, like campaign finance and like, poll watching, poll intimidation, voter fraud. The reason why we have these things is because people do this shit. At least they used to, and that was a big thing. Like, groups of like gangs and shit like would go and like fucking, one of the shifty politicians would hire him to go beat the shit out of people who were voting for their opponent, right? So that's why you're not allowed to do that. And that was another thing back in the Jim Crow era too. You'd have like the KKK going, and they wouldn't like threaten anybody. They would just go hang out right next to the polls and just intimidate people. And if you were black and you went up, you're taking your life in your hands if they catch you voting, right? And that's why this type of intimidation is illegal. So thankfully, Arizona seemed to have turned out okay, at least as far as the governor's race went, and this intimidation really didn't work that well, right? So where did this come from, right? Well, it came from a group called Clean Elections USA, right? And they appear to be a splinter group from another called True the Vote, right? This organization called True the Vote. True the Vote are the people that funded the Dinesh D'Souza's 2000 Mules movie. So if you guys haven't seen this movie going around that's basically claiming that they have proof that the 2020 election was stolen, but it's all complete bullshit. Excuse me. Sorry, I had to burp there. So the whole thing with, 2000 Mules. First off, it was directed by Dinesh D'Souza, who himself was convicted of campaign finance fraud, right? Nothing like claiming your opponents are, engaging in election fraud and stuff like that when you yourself are guilty of something extremely similar. For those of you who don't know, Dinesh D'Souza basically made donations into his wife's name without her permission, got busted, and, was sentenced to prison for that in 2014. Of course, Donald Trump had to pardon him because Donald Trump pardoned everybody who was a fucking right-wing criminal. So in 2018, he got off. So basically, he just got off scot-free, for blatantly breaking the law like that. And then has the audacity to turn around and make a movie where he claims that the Democrats are stealing the election. It's like, pot, beat the kettle, please. So that's the integrity that fucking Dinesh D'Souza has. Fucking lying piece of shit. Anyway, the main thrust of the movie is that the filmmakers, Dinesh D'Souza and, this clean... what the fuck are they called again? Clean Elections USA, these people. They took $2 million and they bought a bunch of, they bought some geolocation data for cell phones, right? Cell phone geolocation data, right? Because if you didn't know this, your phone basically tells the phone company where you are at all times. If you didn't know that, like all these people who are like afraid, the vaccine is going to put like chips inside of your head and all that. They're injecting microchips in you to track you. You're already being tracked. If you have a cell phone, you're being tracked. The phone company knows where you're at. That's just how cell phones work. Part of the way cell phones work is they have to broadcast where you are every minute or so. That's how a phone works. And that's why when you send a text message, your text message can only be 128 characters, because it piggybacks off of that cell phone signal. And that signal is only like 128 bytes or whatever. Right? So basically, if you pay for texting, like that's why for a long time, like, you know, your phone company used to charge you 10 cents for a text message. I don't think any phone company does that anymore, but used to be back in the day when cell phones came out, it was like 10 cents every time you sent a text. And that was just basically ripping you off. You were paying for something that your phone does automatically. That was pure profit. So anyway, if you still have an ancient deal where you pay separately for text, you know, and that's not included in part of your data, you're getting ripped off. Anyway, so they buy this geocaching location, not geocaching. That's something completely different. Excuse me. Geolocation data of these cell phones, and the idea of the movie is that they're trying to claim that using this data, that they can claim that certain Democratic operatives were around different drop-off boxes and polling places in 5 key swing states. And it's 100% grade A bullshit. It has no basis in fucking reality. It's, you know, they're trying to basically say that, okay, well, using this data, we can track these people, and then we can show that they, like, in 10 different Dropbox, like, some people were going to, like, 10 different Dropboxes at once, shit like that. And here's the thing about that, right? Your phone does send a identification as to where you are. That signal is not very accurate. It's accurate up to, in most phones, around 40 feet. But that's most phones and not all the time. Sometimes it depends on where you are. It depends on where the towers are. And weather conditions, all kinds of shit. Anything that can affect your GPS. You know, you ever like use your GPS and it's like way off? Same kind of problems happen in your phone as well, right? So it's only the general vicinity. That's the first thing, right? So here's the thing about that, right? Well, polling places, drop-off boxes are usually in public, like heavily trafficked public areas. They're usually at places like libraries, right? Outside of post offices, that's a big thing, right? So if you go to the post office all the time, like me, part of my business, I have my little side hustle that I do selling prints and stuff. I'm basically at the post office like 4 times a week, right? So if they were tracking this, if they were using this information to track people, and they were tracking my phone, they might think that I'm going to the drop-off box that's next to the post office 4 times a week and shit. It's like, well, I have legitimate business to be there. So that's the first thing, right? Secondly, even if you are in the vicinity of a drop-off box, it's like, just being next to one doesn't prove that you're a mule. Doesn't prove that you're dropping things into the box. Like I said, you may have a legit reason to be there. You know, that looks like shit. Doesn't that look like shit? That's too elaborate. Let's just get rid of that. Let's just make it like a normal. I was thinking, like, you know, since she's a witch, she'd have a table that has like a claw kind of thing. But that's too elaborate. I think we could just make it look more like cat paws or something, you know? So yeah, you know, here's the thing about it. It's like, you know, it just means you're next to it. It doesn't mean that you're actually dropping a fucking, you know, that you're actually dropping in any like fake ballots into it. It just means you're in that vicinity. So, you know, let's say the drop-off box is next to a Starbucks, and that's your morning Starbucks that you go and you get a iced quad venti non-fat latte every day before you go to work or something, right? That's perfectly fucking reasonable. You know, that's a legit reason to be there. Let's say that you work for your government, right? You work for your city council or something. Or you work for the, you know, some like in City Hall, right? And there just happens to be a drop-off box at City Hall, and you go there every day. Well, you're a City Hall employee. You may be within 100 feet of this drop box every day. The cell phone data isn't good enough to say exactly where you are, right? And according to Dinesh D'Souza and his dumb shit friends, it looks like that you're a Democratic operative that's hanging out next to this box every day, right? So it's not good enough. That's the point, is that it's like, okay, it shows people are in certain areas, but it doesn't show what they're doing. And it doesn't even show that they're next to the fucking drop box. They could just be like at the Starbucks next door or something. So it's extremely circumstantial evidence at best, and not even really that good circumstantial evidence even to say so. It doesn't actually prove anything. And in the movie, they try to link this up with, with surveillance footage of people that they claim are mules. The thing is, they don't have any actual footage of anybody actually stuffing a ballot box, right? There's no footage of any of the things that they're claiming. There's no surveillance footage of anybody actually doing that. No footage of anybody. And here's the thing, okay? So apparently it's against the law to put a camera directly on a drop-off box, right? Which is good. Because you don't want to film people voting, right? But none of the surveillance footage they have shows people walking up to them with huge sacks full of ballots, like they fucking claim. That's what they're claiming. They're claiming that people are going and stuffing ballot boxes, right? Well, none of the footage has people carrying. It's not like somebody walking up with a wheelbarrow full of ballots and shit, and then like going and stuffing the box that's off screen. No, doesn't fucking show that. Doesn't show anything like that at all. So it's like basically just made up bullshit is what this fucking stupid ass movie is, right? But this is like this has become a very integral part of the right wing narrative. They're using this movie. People are saying this movie is exposing everything, and the Democrats cheated. And it's like there's absolutely zero fucking evidence. It's just an example of of how conspiracy theories spread around. So much so that certain people took it upon themselves to, do something about it. Because here's the thing. If you believed it, right, folks, if you actually believed this shit was real, then you would believe that you are obligated to do something about it, right? Hence, armed poll watchers intimidating people connected to... And here's the thing about it. It appears that they're actually connected to this group that this group, True the Vote, actually set up these poll watchers from Clean Elections USA, right? It actually looks like it. It looks like they organized it, at least. Why are these people not in fucking prison? That's what I don't get. It says it's illegal. It's against the law. We have video of them doing it. Even some of the, news stations and shit in Arizona went out and, interviewed these people and talked to them. Why are you doing it? Why did you do this? Right? Why are these people not in jail? Every time you hear about you hear about stuff like this, right? Every time we have an election, there's always these shenanigans. Someone will go out and make a bunch of flyers, and it'll be like in Spanish, and it'll say that the election day is on the 6th this year. It's not on the 5th. Right. And it's the whole idea is to fool people who, Spanish speakers who are more likely to vote Democrat to not show up to vote. That shit happens all the time, or people will pass out flyers saying okay, Republicans vote on the 5th, Democrats vote on the 6th, right? And they'll post it up around town. Nobody ever gets caught for that stuff. I think I can count on one, there's one guy, a couple of Republican dudes who the same guys who tried to claim that Elizabeth Warren was having an affair with some Marine or something. Those guys got in trouble for these kinds of shenanigans, right? I can't remember their names. I don't want to look them up right now. But that's the only time that I can remember because you hear about it constantly every fucking election. I remember way back in the day there were people going around who were registering people to vote, and when you wanted to register Democrat, they would register you as a Republican, right? And then when you went to go vote in the Democratic primary, then you couldn't vote in the primary, right? And that appears to be actually a tactic used by Democrats, by the Democrat who is trying to stop people who are in a certain area from registering as Democrats so that they can win the primary, right? So just to kind of show you, I'm not just picking on Republicans here. You know, you do get shenanigans like this from the Democratic Party as well. But I remember that happening. I remember that was a thing in the area that I used to live in at the time. And like it's like, oh fuck, somebody like, someone's going around and like fucking up voter registrations. Better be careful. It was like somebody like, you ever go to like a grocery store and they have like those people standing outside who want you to sign petitions and shit like that. It was like one of those groups was doing that, registering people on as Republicans so that they couldn't vote in the primary, you know. And that kind of thing is targeted. It's like, why would you do that? It's because the people in this area vote a certain way, and they're more likely to vote for your opponent. So that's why you're registering them in a certain, as Republicans to knock them out, right? These types of dirty tricks happen all the fucking time. No one ever gets held responsible for it, right? And it just really gets me. It's like, this time we have proof. We have video of the people doing it. They're on, they have like interviews and shit on the news. We know where they came from. We know who fucking funded it and all that other crap. Is anybody going to do anything about that? Are the sheriff is going to go down in Arizona and fucking arrest these people? No. They're going to get away with it 100% because we don't take it seriously. We don't take it seriously. It's like, it's not a, we don't take it seriously because it's Republicans. Let's really put it where it is. Republicans breaking the law, they always get away with it. Every fucking time. That's like, I don't know why. If you're a Republican in this country and you break the law, especially when it comes to elections and voting, it just seems like you can just do whatever the fuck you want. I mean, I don't know. The United States is fucked up, folks. Anyway, want to talk about one last thing. We're at 12:27 right now. Thank you guys for joining. I see we did have a couple of viewers. Let me just remove this spam from the chat there. Okay. And let's see. Let me just block that guy. Can I block this person? Put user in timeout. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Okay. Let's see here. So one last thing I want to talk about, because we've been talking about conspiracy theorists and Republicans who use hate and fear because they don't care about you. They don't care about you, and they will impose their will on you if you give them a chance, right? They will completely take away your rights. They will use violence to do it. And I think nobody exemplifies this fact more than Nick Fuentes. So I hate to subject you guys to Nick Fuentes again, but Nick Fuentes has a big following. He's got, hundreds of thousands of followers, if not millions, and, tons and tons of young, angry white men are tuning into this fucking little toad every day and listening to him rant and rave and spread hate and fear. And, we got to talk about him, man, because this shit is dangerous. So, let's see. Let's see what we can do here. Let me move this down here. You guys can still hear me talking, right? Okay, good. Let me move this over here. Let's turn this on. Let's move that over onto this window. And get everything ready here. Let's make this smaller so I don't have to worry about... No. Laptop window, thank you. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Why can I not... Why is this not letting me make this smaller again? Hang on a second, folks. Something is wrong. Alright, this is my laptop. That's my main window. Okay, let's just make that. Let's lock that one. Let's unlock this one. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Let's make this a little smaller so we don't get the YouTube gods kicking my stream. This comes from, oh yeah, and I got to put this in the, hang on a second. Got to put this down in the chat so you guys can follow along. Sorry about that. So this comes from a channel called Hater Magazine, if you want to watch this later. Hater Magazine posts clips of extremists from every corner of the internet. Our purpose is to provide accessible, TOS-compliant, and safe means for other YouTubers to educate viewers by identifying and addressing hate online. I'm going to subscribe to these guys. There we go. Also, if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to me. It really helps. So, let's listen to what Nick Fuentes has to say about democracy. Let's turn that on. And here we go. Yeah, thank you.
But you can't even win because ballots with mail-in ballots. They changed the voting constituency with massive immigration. You have all these people, you have 5 million people came into America in the last 2 years under Biden illegally, and probably maybe even more than that, because those are just the people we counted. And it compounds with each year. They have kids, your kids grow up. So what percentage of the election is foreign-born or first generation as a consequence of this population transfer? That's
Okay. So let's just kind of break that down real fast. What did he just say, right? Large portion of people who are foreign-born coming in under Biden, right? That is what he just said, right? Foreign people coming in under Biden, right? And is he claiming these people are voting? Let's just rewind that a little bit. I don't want to take, misrepresent what the man is saying. Let's rewind that a little bit and listen to it one more time.
in the last 2 years under immigration. You have all these people, you have 5 million people came into America in the last 2 years under Biden illegally, and probably maybe even more than that, because those are just the people we counted. And it compounds with each year. They have kids, your kids grow up. So what percentage of the election is foreign-born or first generation as a consequence of this population transfer?
Okay. 5 million people coming in under Biden. Biden has only been president for 2 years, right? That is correct, right? He's only been president for 2 years. So are you claiming that these are illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, right? That is what the right wing says, right? That our borders are open and all that, and they're, the borders are bleeding like a sieve, and they're just allowing all of these illegal immigrants to show up, right? 5 million in 2 years. Well, here's the thing, Nick, right? Non-citizens are not allowed to vote, right? If you're not a citizen, you cannot vote. So is he claiming that all of these people are coming over and becoming citizens and then voting? Is that what he's trying to say? Because it takes decades to become a citizen in the United States, especially if you come over illegally, right? Because if you come over illegally, first off, you have to prove that you have a right to be in the country, right? Which means you get a trial and you go before a judge and you have to prove that you came in through legal channels. And if you can't do that, you get deported, right? Even if you come here and you claim asylum, 9 times out of 10, your asylum claim is just denied and you're sent back to where you are. That's the part they're not telling you, all these caravans of people coming and claiming asylum, stuff like that. The majority of those people just get sent back right to where they were, right? But that's the thing, is that you have a right to do that in this country. You have a right to come and claim asylum. And even if you get rejected, oh well, that's the law. The law says you're allowed to come here, present yourself to a point of entry, right? So asylum seekers are not coming in they're not coming in through the country illegally, right? Asylum seekers are coming here, presenting themselves at the border to a point of entry, asking for asylum, and then legally they're allowed to have like a hearing to show that is their claim legit. And if they are, they get to stay. It's like, well, there's certain things, threats of violence and stuff like that. Is there a war where they're from, right? And I think one of the things that they're saying is like, well, the drug cartels are like, the main reason why people are trying to claim asylum. And good for them. More power to them. I hope they can, But that doesn't mean those people get to vote. None of these people get to vote. So the number of voters who have come in from other countries under Joe Biden in the last 2 years is zero. I mean, even if you apply for citizenship the legit way from a country that we are open to citizenship from, because it's different depending on what country you're from. If you're trying to come from south of the border, good fucking luck. You'll probably never become a citizen, right? If you're coming from Canada, yeah, okay, you might get in a lot easier. But even then, it can take up to it's like 22 years is like how long it takes to become a citizen in this country. You can't just show up 2 weeks later become a citizen. I mean, not unless you're like Donald Trump and you're trying to get like your wife's parents' citizenship. If you're rich and famous, you can grease a few palms. You can get them citizenship right off the fucking bat. So right here, right within the first fucking where we're at 37 seconds, Nick Fuentes is already spewing untrue bullshit. Right? How many of these people are how many of these illegal people under Joe Biden are foreign born in the last 2 years? The answer to that is zero. All right, moving on.
That's one of the ways they the election. The other way is with media.
Wait, that's one of the ways they rig the election. That's one of the ways they rig the election, by bringing people in who can't vote. And then, yeah, okay. See, it's bullshit, folks, right? Nobody, there were no, that's not a thing that happens. It's a conspiracy theory, Nick, here's the thing about this. You should know better. If you're going to talk about this stuff, if you're going to claim these things, the least you can do is go look up what the election laws are. What are the laws for obtaining citizenship, right? How long does it take for someone to obtain citizenship so they can vote? That's the least he didn't even bother to do fucking that. Okay, Nick Fuentes is full of shit. Moving on.
All of the television, print, and radio is biased. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, the LA Times, it's all biased. And then social media is biased. Social media has a curated search result, curated algorithm, hardcore censorship, filters the kinds of opinions that you get and the kind of information that you get, shut down citizen journalism, literally polices the opinions you can have about things like Ukraine, inflation, the election.
Okay, so he is correct here. It is biased. And what he means by biased is that it doesn't, the mainstream media, all the things that he's talking about, don't repeat white nationalist talking points. So in that respect, yes, they are. They are biased against white nationalists, right? Because that's what he's talking about. He's basically saying, oh, the mainstream media shuts out our voices, right? Well, yes, they do. And they do that because your voices are bullshit. The things you say aren't true, right? And they debunk conspiracy theories like the one that Nick Fuentes just espoused, right? Because that's what you do when you're an actual real-life news organization. That's what you're supposed to do. See, the only reason why people believe the news is because the organization has integrity, right? Because if you get proof that your news outlet is saying something that's not true, then why should you trust it, right? Why should you trust it if they're just spreading a bunch of lies? No. A news organization relies on their reputation more than anything else. When you get a reputation for spreading bullshit and lies, people start tuning out. Because most people, when they go to get their news, right, they want the things that they are watching to actually be true. That's the backbone of any media outlet. How trustworthy is it, right? Well, if you're spreading a bunch of ridiculous horseshit lies, people won't trust you, right? So yeah, I mean, I guess if the bias you're talking about is like, are the things you're saying true, right? Then yes, the media does have a bias against voices like Nick Fuentes, because the things that Nick Fuentes says are not true. Number one. Number two, yes, there is also a bias against extreme um, right wing rhetoric. You know why? Because people don't like bigotry. You know, the things like Nick Fuentes is saying, that the Jews control everything, the Jews control the media. You know, stuff like that, right? People don't like that, and they're not going to tune in. If you go, I mean, would you go to a news network that spreads like fucking like Semitic conspiracies and claims that the Holocaust didn't happen and that the Jews control? Would you bother with that? It's like, no, people don't want to hear that because it's not true and it's hateful, right? That's why. It has nothing to do with censorship. No one is. I mean, the thing is, if it was true, they would report it. Okay, something to keep in mind. Like, this is the one big thing that conspiracy theorists like can't get their heads around, and they'll never admit this. But if it was true, they would report it. If there really was a big conspiracy between all the world governments that were all running a smoke, somebody would figure it out. Somebody would report it, and you wouldn't be able to stop them, right? And they would report it because that's how they make money. Because stories like that, big sensational stories like that of conspiracies and shit, that makes people money. That makes, that's like a cash cow for them, right? Why would they not report it? Because there's no fucking truth to it, right? And I'm not saying that every news organization out there, every mainstream organization has all kinds of integrity, shit like that. No, that does happen all the time. Stories get squashed all the time, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, right? What I am saying is that there's no conspiracy to silence the right wing, right? What Nick Fuentes is angry about here is capitalism. That's what he's angry about, because telling the truth and not being a bigot is what people are demanding, and he can't handle that shit because he's a giant fucking crybaby. Moving on. And you notice the things that he said, okay, certain opinions about Ukraine, like, here, let's rewind this a little bit, because he's going to talk about the things that get censored, right?
The kinds of opinions that you get and the kind of information that you get. Shut down citizen journalism, literally polices the opinions you can have about things like Ukraine, inflation, the election, BLM, COVID, vaccines. And then they're all...
Ukraine, inflation, COVID vaccines, BLM, right? You notice that's a laundry list of insane right-wing conspiracy theories right there. What did he say? We're policing the opinions you can have. No. The media does not police your opinions, right? First off, the media doesn't do anything about that. I guess he's referring to social media. I think that's what he must be saying, that, if you have, say, for example, if you spread anti-vax conspiracy theories on Facebook or on Twitter, they ban you, right? Yeah, that's true. If you spread racist conspiracy theories about BLM, they ban you. Yes, this is true. If you spread misinformation about Ukraine, like trying to say that Ukraine is like full of Nazis or some shit like that, and that Putin is just out there to denazify the Ukraine, and the Russians are the good guys, right? If you're spreading bullshit like that, yeah, you can get banned. You can at the least get fact checked, something like that. If you're trying to say that the Jews are like behind inflation, yeah, you get banned. You know why? Because these platforms don't tolerate hate speech. All of those things that he's saying relate to hate speech. Every single one. Let's rewind that one more time, right? That laundry list of things that he just said. Let's rewind that.
You get. Shut down citizen journalism, literally polices the opinions you can have about things like Ukraine, inflation, the election, BLM, COVID, vaccines.
the Ukraine, inflation, the election, COVID vaccines, BLM, right? That's all relating to hate speech. Yes. Yes. Social media does police hate speech, right? Because, once again, capitalism. That's what he's angry at. He's angry at capitalism, you know. No platform out there is required by law to I'll force you to you know, why is that? Wow, you know, we need to make this, hang on a second, guys. We need to make this main window smaller. Give me a second. Yeah, this is a little, there we go. Because you guys, I just noticed you can't see what I'm actually seeing. There we go. No platform out there is required to allow you to be on their platform. That is not a thing that happens. You are not, if you open a Twitter clone, you know, let's call it, I don't know, let's call it Blabber. You open a Twitter clone called Blabber, right? And then a bunch of Nazis show up and want to spread their bullshit on your new Blabber thing. You are not required by law to allow them on there, right? It's your company. You get to do what you want with it, you know? Just like Elon Musk buys Twitter, and then he allows Jordan Peterson back on there. He's probably going to allow Trump back on there. Yeah, well, it's his platform. He can do what the fuck he wants with it, right? The reason why they don't allow hate speech and Nazis and like anti-vaxxers and assholes spreading bullshit about stolen election conspiracies on there, stuff like that, is because people don't like those things. Advertisers will not give you money if you spread hate speech like that, if you spread conspiracy theories, if you spread lies, if you allow these things to go through without any sort of fact-checking. You know, let's say you own you have a company and you sell dog food, right? You're looking for the best place to sell your dog food. Are you going to advertise on a website that has a bunch of fucking Nazis running around? No. You know why? Because some Nazi asshole's going to make a comment about how, like, all the Jews smell funny or something. And then, like, your ad for your dog food is going to be right underneath that. And then people are going to see that and they're going to be like, hey, Mark's dog food company supports Nazis. And then they're not going to go buy your dog food. You know what? That doesn't look right. This should be in the other direction, right? Then they're not going to go buy your dog food, right? So you don't advertise there. So the company has to make money somehow because all of these things are free. No one's going to pay for your dumbass fucking social media thing. Not even $8 like Elon Musk wants. Nobody's going to fucking give his ass $8. Fuck that, right? The only way they make money is through advertisements, right? So they have to make their platform advertiser friendly. So what Nick Fuentes is once again complaining about is capitalism, right? It's not, there's no woke mob out there. There's no department of wokeness in the government forcing these groups to censor Nazis. That is not a thing that's happening. It's capitalism, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think that's good, you know, because, I mean, if we're going to treat corporations like people, which we shouldn't be, but if we are, then corporations have their free speech as well, do they not? I mean, if we're going to say they're people, so does not the corporation have a right to express their free speech on their platform, right? Well, us forcing them to allow Nazis on their platform, then it logically follows is infringing upon their free speech, right? I mean, this is, you know, if we're going to say corporations are people and we're going to say that they have the ability to engage in free speech by fucking like donating all the money in the world to certain politicians and shit like that, then kind of stands to reason that the other side of that should be true as well, and that corporations should be allowed to express their free speech by regulating the content on their platforms, isn't it? The reason why I framed it like that is because that's the conservative argument, right? That's the conservative argument for regulation, of content moderation, for content moderation right there, right?
Because if we're going to have this one thing that conservatives want, like, really fucking bad, if we're going to allow corporations to give millions and millions of dollars to fucking, like, political campaigns and shit without any fucking limit, then we have to allow this other thing as well. Then they have to be able, you know, the free speech just doesn't stop. You know, it's like it's not free over here, but not free over there. No, it's all or nothing, right? Same way, it's like if it's, you know, if it's my fucking my social media thing, I can allow on whoever the fuck I want. You live with those consequences, right? Free speech is speech regulated by the government, right? The owner of the platform is not capable of infringing upon your free speech by not allowing you on his platform. It's his fucking platform. He could do what he wants with it, right? The only way that your speech would be impeded is if the government came on there and said you're not allowed to say this on that platform. That's infringing on your free speech. When people in China, right, are not allowed to say that Taiwan is its own independent country, that's infringing on their free speech. The government is going on and saying, no, if you say this, you go to jail. That's infringing on free speech, right? If in you know, in Iran, if you like go on Twitter and you say that women should be allowed to like not wear a hijab or whatever, and then the government throws you in prison for that, that's infringing on your free speech, right? Twitter saying that Nazis are not allowed to go on and spread around anti-Semitic conspiracy theories is not infringing on free speech. That's the exact opposite of that. That is actually Twitter, like, exercising their right to free speech. That looks like shit. I gotta fix that table. I guess I could just make this a 4-legged table. That would make more sense. If I put another leg back here. Actually, yeah, let's do that. Let's just put another leg in the back. I don't feel like making this more round. So, once again, Nick Fuentes is completely full of shit and has no idea what the fuck he is talking about. Moving on.
Vaccines. And then they're all doing get out the vote on the platforms that skew young, like TikTok and Instagram. That's an in-kind contribution like the Zuckerberg Chan Foundation.
What?
You tell all the young Zoomers on TikTok and Instagram to remember to go out and vote, and you artificially boost the 18 to 29 turnout, which heavily favors Democrats. It's an in-kind contribution by the richest companies in the world that have reach with billions of people.
That is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. So telling people to go out and vote is an inline contribution? Get the fuck... That is the stupidest fucking thing I've heard in my entire... That makes zero sense. Do any of these companies ever say, get out and vote for Democrats? Did that happen? Right? Did that happen? Did Facebook or Twitter go out and say, everybody go out and vote and make sure you vote for AOC and Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden? No, they did not say that, right? In fact, I don't even think any of them said go out and vote. I think what really happened is that people used these platforms to go get out the vote, to do that, right? But even when they do, when a corporation does a get out the vote thing, like you would see this on MTV all the time, Rock the Vote. Remember anybody remember Rock the Vote way back in the day, right? Just shows how old I am. None of them ever said, go out and vote for XYZ. Vote for this guy, vote for that guy. Nobody ever said that. There, that makes it look better. Now it's like there's another leg behind it, see? So it's actually a square table instead of a round table. Okay. Nobody ever fucking said that, right? So, no. In order to be an inline, like a contribution, you have to be actually favoring one political party over another, and specifically usually one political candidate over another. So just a corporation saying go vote, that doesn't do anything at all. That's not contributing. I mean, conceivably, conservatives can take that message and be like, oh yeah, I should go vote. And then they could go vote for conservatives. They're not actually saying who they should fucking vote for. Fucking stupid. Right? Number two, just somebody using the platform to go vote is not an inline contribution because like the social media company isn't paying for that. The social media company didn't say pay for this person to go make a thing saying go vote. Bullshit. That's the stupidest fucking shit. You know, here's the thing, right? Churches do this all the fucking time. Churches tell people to go vote and they say vote for specific candidates. How many churches in 2016 and 2020 said go vote for Donald fucking Trump? You know, hundreds if not thousands. Okay? And they fucking that's like that's actually illegal. You know, churches aren't supposed to be fucking like endorsing political candidates, but nobody fucking does anything about that. How come Nick Fuentes isn't bitching and moaning about churches giving illegal inline contributions? Get the fuck out of my face. God damn, it's the stupidest shit. And here's the thing, someone's gonna watch this asshole say this and be like, yup, the social media companies are fucking skewed towards Democrats. People will just, it's like, all you have to do is be a right-winger and say shit that are like, you know, be against Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton or whatever, and people will just fucking eat your shit up without even thinking about it. There's gonna be people in the Groper fucking army or whatever now who actually believe this bullshit that this guy's saying without even all you gotta do is, goddamn, all you have to do is think about it for fucking 2 seconds and it falls apart. It's like, please, people, please, for fucking God's sake, just actually listen to the man's and examine what the man says for fucking 2 seconds before you just fucking like swallow. Please. Let it swish around in your mouth first before you swallow his load, please. Such bullshit. Moving on. God damn it, we're only like a minute and 39 seconds in. Let's continue.
You've got it rigged in every other way. And how do we know that? Look at the disadvantage that is just baked into the cake. John Fetterman has brain damage. He's got brain damage. At the debate, at the only debate that they had for the Pennsylvania Senate race between Oz and Fetterman, for the first time ever, they had a live transcription of the debate questions put up on a monitor behind the moderators of the debate because Fetterman's brain is so damaged by a stroke that he cannot process auditory sensory input. So that's not like he's deaf. It's not like he can't hear. His brain cannot process audio input.
Is this guy going to say anything else about Fetterman besides the fact that he had a stroke? You know, I just want to point this out here, okay? What's his problem with Fetterman, right? Is he going to talk about any of the guy's policies? You know, is he going to say anything that Fetterman did wrong? Any scandals that he had? You know, anything like that? It's like his entire argument against John Fetterman is ableism. And okay, so he can't, you know, he had a problem with the stroke. And yeah, during the debate, it is true that they made special accommodations for him so that he could debate. What's wrong with that? Why is that a bad thing, right? Listen to what he's just saying here. Okay, so he can't process auditory things, and then no, first off, that's not true. All right. The stroke problem that John Fetterman had at that time and is recovering from, it wasn't that he couldn't process couldn't process sound and then like make the correct like response. It's not that he couldn't understand things. It's like what happens is that there's a disconnect in your brain from what you're hearing and what you want to respond to. And so what they did is that they took the questions and they wrote it out on a teleprompter for him, right? They gave him reasonable accommodations so that he could read it because it's easier for his brain in the current state that he was in, which, you know, this will only improve over time, by the way, right, as he recovers. It's only, you know, it's more, it's easier for him to, at that time, process it in a written form than it was for him to hear it. It's not brain damage,
You know, when you hear brain damage, you think someone who's like, you know, banging their head against a wall like with a bandage and shit around it like a coconut in a fucking, you know, all messed up and unable to function. Like, you think of somebody crapping their pants in a diaper or crap like that because they're like so fucking brain damaged they can't like function for themselves. That's not what's going on with John Fetterman. It was just some disconnect in between like his auditory input and like the part of your brain that processes language, right? That in no way should disqualify somebody from a leadership role. You know, the same way. I mean, here's the thing: if John Fetterman's legs didn't work, pretty sure Nick Fuentes would be making fun of him for his legs because you know it's all like surface level perceptions for these assholes. You know, oh, he must be weak. He has this handicap. He must be weak. He's not. You know, we only need. You know, that's the thing with like alt-right people and right-wingers and shit like that. You know, they equate strength with like physical powers and stuff. You know, that's why Ben Garrison, you know, up until recently, because Ben Garrison apparently has, you know, Ben Garrison is the Trump guy who like political cartoonist who drew all these really stupid fucking like, you know, political cartoons of Donald Trump being all buff and everything. That's why he would always show Donald Trump like being like buff and super muscular and stuff like that, because it's all surface level shit for these people. You know, it's all like, oh, it's, you know, they want a big strong leader and shit. It's such fucking bullshit. It's like, no, man, you know, you want somebody with like intelligence. John Fetterman has that intelligence and integrity. But, you know, Nick Fuentes can't handle that shit. Because fucking, you know why? Because Nick Fuentes is a child. That's why. Moving on.
Like, think about that. And this guy is not just going to be some congressman. He's going to be a senator, the upper chamber. There are only 100 senators in America. How does that happen?
Yeah, why is that wrong? What's so bad about someone who has a handicap being a senator? You know? I mean, I think it just kind of exposes right there. This is what this guy cares about. He doesn't give a fuck about who you are on the inside or what your brain is or, you know, what you think or how qualified you are, right? He gives a shit about, you know, your physical ability. Like, I mean, like we have like every fucking senator should be able to run a 6-minute mile and bench 200 pounds or something. Like get the fuck out of here. Why does that matter? You know, why does your physical fucking ability matter when it comes to creating laws? You know, and if that was the case, why are these fuckers like Trump so much? Trump is like fucking morbidly obese, you know, lies about his height, you know, like a Trump's official height is 6'2" or whatever, but he's not 6'2". He's shorter than Barack Obama, you know. And the reason why they lie about Trump's height is because he weighs fucking, you know, and then they say he weighs 230 pounds. More like he weighs 270 pounds. You've seen those pictures, right? You know, and they do that so his BMI will not be obese. That's you know, when you look up Donald Trump and you look up how much he weighs and how tall he is, that's not true. He's shorter than that. He's fatter than that. He's obese. Right? But those are the official numbers that they give. He's 6'3" and 230. Get the fuck out of my face. More like he's fucking like, you know, 5'10" and fucking like 270 pounds or whatever. Because it's all surface level bullshit. It's all because, you know, he can't look weak. You know, they don't want a fat guy to be the president, do they? Get the fuck out of here. So fucking such bullshit.
Either the system is broken and it needs to be fixed. You know, that would be the answer. The system is broken. There's cheating. And they cheated, and that's how they got Fetterman in office. Or the system is working, and they didn't cheat. And now it almost...
Which one of those is more likely, huh? Oh, or the system is working, and they didn't cheat. Yeah. Maybe people actually voted for the guy who had integrity. You know, I didn't really follow Oz and Fetterman too much, right? because it's not, I mean, I don't live there in Pennsylvania. That's not my state. So, I didn't really follow it too much, but I did watch a couple of interviews with Fetterman. He had these tattoos on his arms, right? And there was an interview of like, where did these come from? And the tattoos on his arms are representative of people who died of drug overdoses in his city, because he was like the mayor of this city for a little while, like this town. And basically, every time somebody would die of a drug overdose in the city he was in, he would get a tattoo commemorating them, and mainly from fentanyl. And he has both of his arms covered in all these tattoos now. And the Republicans tried to make fun of him, saying that he was some kind of like biker or some shit, or punk rocker. Why's he got all these tattoos? And then he goes and he has this interview. This is why I have the tattoos, asshole. Because he's a man of like actual like integrity who cares about people that he's representing. Contrast that to Dr. Oz, who basically didn't even live in the fucking state, lied his ass off about all this other bullshit, made fun of him because the guy had a like stroke, and was just caught in like all these little scandals one after another. And it kind of shows which one of those guys was there who had integrity, who actually cared about people, who wanted to become the senator in order to help the people in the community that he lives in, and which one of those guys wanted to just become a senator so that they could make a shitload of money. That's kind of shows, kind of just compare and contrast those people. And it's like, well, gee, maybe people wanted to vote for the guy that actually gives a fuck about them, and not the guy who was just there to fucking like enrich himself at their expense. Nick Fuentes can't understand that. He can't understand that because he can't understand why somebody would vote for a dude who has a handicap. Because Nick Fuentes is a piece of shit. That's why. Moving on.
Almost be worse. Because if the system is working as it should and they're just counting all the ballots, at a certain point you have to take a look at the outcome and say, if we're getting outcomes like this, something's wrong with the process. People have a theological belief in the process, which is democracy. One man, one vote, and everyone's going to vote. One man, one woman, one child, one retard, one criminal, one homeless person, one crazy person, one guy with an 80 IQ, one guy with a 200 IQ, one guy that's in school and never had a job, and one guy that owns a business. Jeez. They have a theological conviction that this is moral, this is just. They believe in that process. And whatever the outcome is, it doesn't matter. That's how it has to be.
Yeah. Wow. First off, fuck Nick Fuentes. Because that is the most, like, ridiculous bullshit ever. I mean, what's he trying to say there? That people shouldn't have a right to vote? That is, yes, I will agree that what he's saying, that we have a it's not a real actual theological belief in democracy, but it is romanticized. We do have a romanticized belief in democracy in this country. That is how it should be, right? This is, you know what, I think this is just going to be a mummified, I was going to be like a skeleton dragon, but I think this will just be a mummified dragon instead. Because drawing it already doesn't look like bones. That's how it should be. I mean, do you want people to, like, not have the ability to determine who their leaders are? That's what democracy is all about. That's the whole point. The point of democracy, right, is to give a mandate to the government. So we elect our representatives, right? The reason why we obey the laws that they pass is because they have a mandate from the masses. And yes, it has to be equal. Like, Nick Fuentes obviously doesn't like the fact that everybody, regardless of your age, I guess as long as you're over 18, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your IQ, he mentioned IQ, regardless of your race, he mentioned your race there, your religion, whether the fact you're a criminal, whether you've been in prison, although in most areas in the country, going to prison means you lose your right to vote. which I think is bullshit. I think I would even go as far myself personally to allow people in prison to vote. I would do that, but I know that's not a popular opinion, and I'm not going to die on that hill. But that's just my own personal belief, because those people are citizens too. That's the whole point of having a right. You know, that's the difference between a right and a privilege. You have a privilege, for example, to drive in this country. You don't have a right to a driver's license. That means if you want to drive a car, you have to go register, you have to get insurance, you have to follow the law, and you have to get a driver's license. You have to take a test that proves you're competent on the road. And even though it's like the easiest test ever and most people don't even have to worry about it, right? You have to do all those things because you don't have a right to actually drive. Well, you should have a right to vote, even though that's the right to vote is an unenumerated right. You know, some state constitutions say you have a right to vote. It is actually not in the Constitution itself, which is bullshit. And if we ever needed a constitutional amendment, we need one for a right to vote. You know, but some state constitutions do say you have a right to vote. I think in California you actually do have a right to vote and some other things, right? But there's limits on it. You know, you have to be over a certain age. Most states out there, once you get convicted of a felony, you lose your right to vote, and then you get it reinstated at some point. Although there are still some states out there like Tennessee and Kentucky, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think it's Kentucky, where if you get convicted of a felony, you lose your right to vote permanently, forever. Can't vote ever again, right? So that's the thing, but that's the difference with rights versus privileges. When you have a right to something, then you get it no matter what. Right to free speech, for example. Right to your religion. No one is allowed to tell you what religion you can and can't believe in. Know that the state is not allowed to say you are and are allowed to say these certain things. No. You have a right to that. You have a right to free assembly, right? State is not allowed to be like, okay, you guys are not allowed to meet anymore at all. They could put restrictions on it. They can say you can't meet because of a public health emergency, some shit like that, or you can't hold your giant rally right here in the middle of traffic, or you can't do it like right here in the at the fucking Grand Canyon or something. They could do that, but they're not allowed to ban you from meeting at all, right? You know, there's reasonable restrictions on these things, but they can't just ban it from you. You have a right to that, you know. You have a right to petition the government. Right, that's usually where most people say the right to vote comes from, but these are actually two different things. You have a right to petition the government. You know, government is not allowed to come up to you and say, okay, because of your political beliefs, you're not allowed to send us this petition. You're not allowed to call your senator and ask him for certain things. No, you have a right to that. They can't refuse to. At least they can choose to not. You know, your senator, your state rep can choose to not act on your petition. But they're not allowed to ban you from calling them. They're not allowed to ban you from sending them letters or trying to meet from them or having you show up at a town hall and speak. They can kick you out if you're acting like an asshole and like threatening violence and shit. These things are different. See, this is the thing. That's the difference between a right and a privilege. Nobody can take your rights away. You have rights the day you were born. That right belongs to you. Right? Nick Fuentes doesn't want that. He doesn't give a fuck about your rights. You know, and that little speech right there, wow, where he just said, you know, the fact that we treat people equally, and he objects to the fact that we treat people equally and we give everybody in this country, you know, at least on paper, we give everybody in this country free, you know, equal access to these rights. I think that says more than anything, you know, what Nick Fuentes is all about. Guy's a fucking authoritarian. Moving on.
Because it is moral to have everyone have their say in who gets elected to represent the people in the government.
Yes.
That's it.
That is correct.
We should have a mass democracy. Everything should be democratized. Everything should be a popularity contest.
Nobody says that. No one at all says that. In fact, that's not what our form of government is. Our form of government is a republic, which means we vote for people to make these decisions for us. I think we could use a little bit more of actual pure democracy. You know, I think, for example, the things like the electoral college should go away and we should just use the popular vote. But that's not what our system is, and Nick Fuentes saying that is misrepresenting what democracy actually is. American-style democracy, at least. You know, part of being a republic means that minority voices and minority, groups, people who are not in the majority, are actually protected. You know, because that's true. You could say, if it was just all a popularity contest like he just claimed, you could say that the majority could then vote and say, okay, well, we're the majority, and let's say we don't like black people, we're going to vote to take away all of, vote and say that black people aren't allowed to vote anymore. You could say that that is pure democracy. Thankfully, we don't live in a pure democracy. We live in a republic that has protections built in that say, no, you are not allowed to pass a law that says that. You are not allowed to, take over the government by winning an election and then saying that a certain minority group or protected class or something no longer has any rights. Sorry. And that is one of the advantages of not living in a pure democracy, right? So, no, Nick Fuentes is full of shit, once again, and is lying, is lying or just doesn't know what democracy actually is in this country. Moving on.
Well, at a certain point, if you start getting Fetterman, you have to then take a look at the process and say, if this process is working, then it's a bad process. If you're getting a guy elected to the upper chamber of the lawmaking body of government and he can't hear, it's kind of an important thing. If the system worked, you have...
That's bullshit. It's not that Fetterman can't hear, right? It's that he, currently in his stage can't process auditory signals as efficiently as a non-stroke victim. And frankly, even if he couldn't hear, even if he was deaf, why does that mean that he can't be a senator? What the fuck? What's wrong with deaf people? There are millions and millions of deaf people in the country. What? Does being deaf means can't be a senator anymore? What kind of shit is that? Kind of fucking ridiculous horse shit is that? Fucking Strom Thurmond was a senator up until he was 98 and shit, in a wheelchair, unable to walk. Guy probably couldn't even fucking chew his food without assistance. Republicans voted for that fucking racist asshole up until the day he fucking finally kicked the bucket and went to fucking hell. Right? Strom Thurmond, was making laws for us in this country, fucking segregationist and shit, all the way up until the day he finally shuffled off this mortal coil, and hopefully he's in hell getting ass raped by demons as we speak or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't personally believe in hell, but you get my point. They had no problem voting for that piece of shit. So why is it okay to vote for Strom fucking Thurmond, but not John Fetterman, who isn't deaf? God, what an asshole. And you just how can people listen to this fucking shit and that's the scary part, is that this dude has fucking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers around the country. What the fuck is the matter with people, man? God damn.
Have to get rid of the system. And that's not a fluke, because across the board in this election, look at the situation. Inflation is at 10%. We know high fuel prices, high food prices, high energy prices, everything's up. There's a massive labor shortage. You see it everywhere.
What does inflation have to do with who you vote for? I mean, unless you're counting the guy who created created the trade wars with China, who fucked up the COVID response really fucking bad and caused all of these these supply chain issues in the first place. I mean, you notice he's not actually putting the blame where it belongs. Let's not forget all of this stuff, you know, it's not like inflation just showed up immediately when Joe Biden became president. You know, there was a lot of things that Donald Trump and his band of fucking cohorts did in order to get us into this shitty situation in the first place. You know, and it's not like you can just vote for somebody and then inflation stops the next day. That's not true either. I mean, so what the fuck does that have to do with anything, you know? You guys do remember that, right? You remember the trade wars that Donald Trump started? You know, you remember the fucking 100 million tons of soybeans just sitting there rotting in American fields because Donald Trump banned like export of soybeans to China, and so like they didn't have any place to sell them anymore. So the price of soybeans just fucking like, you know, collapsed. You guys remember all that? You guys remember pandemic and how like, you know, because of that, like meat prices went way up because like farmers weren't able to sell their fucking like pork and beef anymore because of that, because of the pandemic and because of the trade wars with China that Donald Trump fucking instigated. And so they had to slaughter all of their fucking animals, right? And for a little while meat was super cheap, and then now it went way up because they had to slaughter all their farm animals, and now it takes time for them to grow back. You guys remember all that stuff, you know? How the fuck is any of this Joe Biden's fault? How the fuck did any of this start just because like we elected a Democrat? It didn't. But they don't say this stuff. It's because they just blame it all on the Democrats in charge. He must be his fucking fault. I mean, I'd be saying this same shit if Trump won the election. I'd be saying the same thing here. You know, well, actually no, because he was kind of partially responsible for all this shit in the first place. So, you know, I'm just saying, put the blame where the blame actually belongs. You know, it's like, and try to look at the root causes of these problems instead of like who happens to be sitting in the chair when it hits. Of course, Nick Fuentes ain't gonna do that because he's once again a piece of shit who doesn't know anything. Moving on.
Everywhere you go, they're out of something. There's shortages. They limit the menu. They don't have enough workers on hand. We are closer than ever to a shooting war with Russia than at any point during the Cold War. Okay. Which is really saying something. We're headed towards a recession. Everybody knows that. Everybody
I guess we should.
Only debate that they had.
Crap.
For the
Sorry.
Pennsylvania
hit the wrong button.
If the system worked, you have to get rid of it.
I accidentally messed up there. Let's go back to where we're about here, right?
They'll always get Democrats. Same in California.
No.
House. So equally with Fetterman, with any metric, any way that you cut it, it's really bad.
Okay.
Economy's bad.
Sorry about that, folks. Accidentally hit the wrong hit it the wrong thing there on the video and messed up our place in it. But yeah, we are close to a shooting war with Russia, but what are we just going to let them take over Ukraine? I mean, what's your solution? Your solution is just let Russia roll in and steal somebody else's country? Like, no. You know, we are now I do agree we are kind of skirting the line when it comes to you know, getting pretty close to war there. I mean, this whole thing with the missiles landing in Poland was pretty scary. But at the same time, are we supposed to just sit back? Let Russia roll over Europe. So, okay, they take over Ukraine. What if they invade, you know, Poland next? Are we supposed to just let them do it? Oh, we don't want to start a nuclear war. Right. What's the limit? What's the line? Well, you know, for better or worse, they've determined that the line is here. Because Ukraine is not in NATO, we can support Ukraine and not trigger Article 5 of the NATO Defense, you know, Act, where everybody jumps in and attacks Russia, and then that would start a nuclear war. So this is where the line has to be, you know, and frankly, if there's any country on earth that I think we were like scared of that we shouldn't be scared of, it's Russia. They've kind of showed that they don't fucking, you know, really have what they claim to have as far as their military goes. All during the Cold War, like I remember this growing up, even me, like in the tail end of the Cold War. I was a small child in the 80s, but even then, there were still things like nuclear bomb drills and stuff. Every once in a while, they would be like, it'd be an earthquake or nuclear attack drill. And sometimes they would say it's a nuclear attack, and you'd have to, and they would say drop, and then you have to get under your desk. Right? And that was supposed to, like, protect us from an earthquake or a nuclear blast. And it was like, everybody knows this ain't going to do shit. Right? But that was the thing. You would see in your classrooms growing up, there would be in the classroom, in case of nuclear attack, stop, get under your desk. It's like, yeah, okay. That's all you got to do, folks. Just hide under your desk and a nuclear bomb will just bounce right off, right? So yeah, we've been in this environment before. And, all throughout the Cold War, they were always saying, the Russians have all this, like, insane military power. Oh, they have 60,000 tanks. They have 500,000 troops, all this other shit. And then, when the time comes for them to put their money where their mouth is, where they're actually, like, encountering a country that fights back, they kind of get fucking annihilated. Right? Like, I don't think Russia could. I think we'd fucking stomp Russia if it actually came to a shooting war. I don't think Russia knows that they can. I think they know that they don't stand a fucking chance. Here's the other thing. I don't think we would even need to use nuclear weapons, to be honest. I think a couple of aircraft carriers in certain places would be enough in order to basically cripple their entire country. But I don't know. I'm no military expert, so I'm not going to, try to claim one thing or another. That's just my completely uninformed opinion. And if I'm probably wrong, I'm just a guy talking out of my ass here. Just seems to me that Russia was very much a paper tiger. But what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to just, stand by? Let them fucking take over the Ukraine? Let them steal somebody else's country? No. If it was your country, would you allow Russia to fucking take it? Fuck no. You'd be doing everything you can to fight back. So, fuck that shit. I'm glad that they're fighting Russia. Moving on.
Foreign policy's bad. Crime is bad. Immigration is bad. What else is there? What else do you really have? And yet, Democrats didn't lose. They retained potentially the Senate, and they almost nearly retained the House. So, equally with Fetterman winning, okay, he's a stroke victim, that's pretty obvious, but there are flukes. But when you have across the board, in New York elected a Democrat governor again, re-elected a Democrat governor, and look at the city of New York, the crime, the stench, the economy. People are leaving the state, they're fleeing the city. It doesn't matter how bad crime gets, they'll always get Democrats. Same in California. Same in all these other states. Even in states like Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado.
Maybe that's because crime is not as bad as all of the right-wing bullshit people tell you it is. I mean, I'm not going to lie, right? Crime is pretty bad in these areas, But it's arguably as bad, if not worse, I'm going to erase that weird circle. That doesn't look right. Crime is also pretty bad in red states as well. Violent crime, for example, is per capita higher in red states. It is. We could take the Pepsi challenge. In fact, maybe that's what our next stream will be about. But especially violent crime is actually higher. More people are shot per capita, gun violence wise, right? In red states than they are in blue states, Actually, that doesn't look right. Right. There's more violent crime, like assault, shit like that, per capita. And I'm saying per capita because there will be more obviously there will be more actual instances of crime in New York than there will be in Kentucky, for example, right? Why? Because 40 times more people live in New York than they do in Kentucky. That's just a fact, right? But if you look at per capita, right, per number of 100,000 people or whatever,
you're more likely to get shot living in Alabama, living in Florida, than like, or living in fucking like Arkansas or something. You're more likely to get, robbed or like have the shit beat out of you or assaulted or something like that than you are living in California or New York. Those are just the facts. You're more likely to get like accosted by a drug addict or something living in the South. That's just, and I'll take the Pepsi challenge any day of the week. It's fine if you don't agree with me, but this is what the evidence actually says. So sorry, Nick Fuentes, you're fucking wrong. Maybe it's not as bad. That's another thing in the right wing echo chambers. They're always saying that California is a hellhole, San Francisco is a hellhole. It's full. There's human shit on the streets and all that. New York and Chicago is just guns and violence, all this. And then you go to these places and you find they're just normal, ordinary cities like any other city. And like any other city, there's crime and drugs and shit like that. But that's what it's like in every fucking city in the United States because we live in a fucking dystopian hellhole. Right? It's not any more dangerous just because you're in New York. I mean, it's bullshit. So, that's right-wing echo chamber shit that has no basis in fucking reality. Moving on.
Oh, really? At what point, and this was my awakening, when I realized that I actually care more about the outcomes than the process. We could say that these are objectively bad outcomes. If Hillary Clinton gets elected, if Joe Biden gets elected, if Democrats win with everything going on, well, that's wrong. That's the wrong decision. It's constantly the wrong decision. It seems to be systemically the wrong decision. And so at a certain point, you have to say, I'm tired of electing criminals and retards and idiots and degenerates and crooks. And we have to look at the process. Maybe this is the process working. Maybe this is the kind of democracy that we just have with the mass universal suffrage, with these weird voting laws, with the relationship between money and candidates or money and get out the vote. And so to me, this is not a referendum on Biden or Trump. It's a referendum on the system. This is what the system gives us. Trump is like a real hero who saved America, made the economy great, didn't start any wars.
So what? Then take away people's right to vote? I mean, listen to that shit. It's basically all the things you complain about. Universal suffrage. People get to vote. If you took away everybody's right to vote, it's not like all of these problems just go away. Right? How do you think we got these problems in the first place? These social ills that he's discussing, right? Those issues come from disenfranchisement, right? Crime is the result of, at its core, when one group is disenfranchised from another, right? That's where crime comes from. Crime is essentially when there's a group of people that, systemic crime, that like generational crime, right, is a symptom of an unjust society. And those societies that are more just, right, that have a higher democratic index have less social ills, less crime, right? Because when people are allowed to self-determine, what did I just do with my pen? There it is. When people are allowed to make these sorts of choices where they're allowed to like self-determine and decide where resources go, then they tend to address social ills. Then things become a little more even. Then you start seeing money being spent to address these problems, and hence you have less crime. You have higher education, and this is what you see in all of these places in Northern Europe, where it's like, where there's very, very low numbers of crime, where there's low numbers of things like illegal, drug use and stuff, because they've mainly legalized drug use in all these places. But, you don't have drug dealers and shit running around fucking Denmark, because, it's legal there. So why there's no drug cartels shooting people? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that these places are free from crime, but it's a lot less in those areas, right? Because these places also have very, very high democratic representation in their, you know, and so they have their populations are better educated, right, than us, you know. They have less in the way of these sorts of inequality and social ills, and that's another thing. The gap between rich and poor is way less in those countries as well, and it's like this is what it takes to address these types of systemic social issues of generational poverty and crime. That's what it takes, and this is what our country seems to be incapable of doing. And one of the roadblocks to us addressing these types of social ills is racism. The exact thing that Nick Fuentes is fucking like spouting right here. He wants to take away people's ability to represent themselves, to you know, to determine the direction that their country goes in. He wants to take that away and just impose on everybody his own will, like saying how that's gonna, like, yeah, I guess it'll stop crime if you just kill everybody. I guess that'll stop crime, right? If you just like gave the death penalty to every single person you arrest, yeah, I guess that stops crime as well. So I don't know. Maybe Nick Fuentes has a point. Maybe we should just murder everybody if we just kill every single person in the country and everybody's dead, then there's no more crime, right? I guess that makes sense. Fucking moron. Lewis the Hedgehog, thanks for joining. Adversary Fandon, thank you for joining as well. What's up, guys? I'll get through a little bit more of this, and then I'll read some comments before we sign off for the day. But let's go for a little bit more here.
Negotiated NAFTA, stopped illegal immigration. He delivered on like everything he promised, and he got defeated by a guy that has dementia.
Yeah, Trump didn't deliver shit, by the way. Trump delivered a tax cut. That's what he fucking delivered. Everything else that the guy promised, nothing else fucking happened. But, you know, Nick Fuentes and the right wing, they're delusional about that, so they have to make up a bunch of bullshit. He didn't stop illegal immigration. Illegal immigration was at the exact same fucking level, even through all of the Trump years when they were doing shit like taking away people's children. That didn't stop illegal immigration. So, no, he's completely full of shit here. Trump didn't. The only thing Trump did was give a tax cut to himself and his rich criminal friends. That's the only fucking thing Donald Trump did. That's the only thing that he did. And everything else that he did was like, I mean, he did plenty of bad shit. That's the only promise, the only campaign promise he fucking delivered on. So, bullshit.
Who nobody really wanted, but they all voted because the media said Trump was Hitler. This is our that's democracy that we can't touch and can't criticize. It's got to go. It's not working. It's got to go. What do you replace it with? I don't know. But you got to get Trump in there, and he needs to change all the rules and make it so that the right people can start to win again. How do you do that? Well, think about who would make the right decisions. Landowners, educated people, high IQ people, people that have been here for generations, married people.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Just the exact same people that we are. Yeah, that's what it is. Let's just take away the power from everybody and give it to rich white landowners. Unfucking believable. I can't believe this guy's even saying this. It's like he's just, you know, usually right-wingers and shit are a little more mask on when it comes to these things. You know, they're a little more, we'll just be like, you know, we want democracy, but we want it to be actually fair, and we want elections to be fair. This guy's just saying, yeah, we should just straight take away democracy and just give it to the rich white landowners like it used to be. Like it used to be back in 1798 or whatever. Unbelievable. How can anybody, like, wow. This is why people like punching Nazis in the face. Let's just put it that way. Okay. If right now some dude came on the screen and just punched him in the face, I wouldn't object. I wouldn't be saying no. It's infuriating because it's angry to hear this. It makes you angry, you know. And to know that he would do this to you, just remember, Nick Fuentes would take these things away from you at the barrel of a gun. He would do that if he had the ability. If he had 2 million brown shirts behind him with AK-47s, or I guess AR-15s is what they'd be carrying. he would do all this and forcibly take all these rights away from you at the drop of a hat, and he would do it with a smile on his face. What a piece of shit.
People with kids. That's how you would start a conversation about, well, who should make the decisions? Well, it definitely shouldn't be people that have never worked a job or run a business. Definitely shouldn't be 18-year-olds that are in college and they rent an apartment and their parents pay for everything and they work a job but they just have to go and work in service. What do you know about anything?
All right, enough of this shit. Enough of this fucking asshole. I can't. He's just basically advocating for dictatorship. That's what he wants. Okay, so you're 18. You're too young to know any about this. Oh, you've never had a job. You don't have the same. Look at it. I mean, he's basically saying he wants to take away your right to vote. That is the most fundamental. You know what? Fuck this guy. We're turning this guy off. Enough of fucking Nick. Ooh, wrong one. Enough of fucking Nick fucking Fuentes. Fuck you, Nick Fuentes. Like, he just straight out said it. That's the most anti-democratic, anti-American thing I've ever heard any of these fucking dumb shit pundits. Here's the scary shit about this, is that politicians and shit are hanging out with him. Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke at his fucking, like, at his fucking, like, F-PAC or whatever the fuck, like, group that he has, That's what he did. Like, they're cultivating his audience. And that's fascism. That's just straight up fascists right there. Wants to take away your right to vote, doesn't believe that you should have a right to vote, believes that he will, that he wants to force people to believe what he believes, and then they make the rules. That's fascism. That's a dictatorship. That's the most anti-American shit ever. So whenever you hear him saying there, his put America first or whatever, make America great again, no. They don't care about America. They don't give a fuck about America. They're not here to protect your rights. If given the chance, they would destroy America, and they would do it in the heartbeat, right? And they'd smile right in your face as they stab you they wouldn't even stab you in the back. They'd stab you in the heart, laughing all the way. That's who these people are. It's unfucking believable. Oy, Jesus. Louis the Hedgehog, I actually take him seriously. He's a serious threat. Yes, he is. He is, folks. I don't know, guys. I actually got to get going here. I have to go get my car smogged, actually. So, thanks for joining, guys. I kind of don't really have time to read any comments now. But, if you like what I do and you want to support me, the links. I'll put them down in the thing. I have an Etsy shop. I have a other, YouTube channel and some other things like that in a webcomic. I'll put all that stuff down in the description after the video publishes. Thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate it. And I don't know, it frustrates me to see shit like this. That's what it is. It just frustrates me because, like, this motherfucker has like 2 million fucking followers. Like, god damn. This country's fucked. We're screwed, folks. We're absolutely screwed. One day, it's absolutely fucking frustrating. It's like we take one step forward and 20 steps back, And, it could be, it's like right now is actually a really great time to be a progressive because it just seems like the right wing is imploding. They lost the fucking midterms. They're going crazy. Elon Musk is destroying Twitter. And good, fuck him, right? Donald Trump is being investigated by 57 different fucking, for 57 different crimes and shit like that. They just did a special prosecutor. He's probably going to get indicted, right? He announces that he's running again, and all of the right-wingers hate it. The establishment, Republicans and shit fucking hate it. It really does seem like the right wing is falling apart. But at the same time, you look at how many people are following somebody like Nick Fuentes, someone who just sat there and did an 11-minute rant about why democracy sucks and how he's going to take it away from you. Right? And that's just going to make him more popular. That was on YouTube. He's talking about how, tech companies are censoring conservatives and shit. He's saying that shit on YouTube. That video had like fucking 100,000 views. He's making money from this shit. It's unbelievable, folks. Anyway, I really got to get going. Thank you all so much for joining. And, you know, this is why voting matters. This is why voting should be precious. This is why you should vote in every election, every time, no matter who's running, you know. Even if you're voting for a third party guy, even if you're voting for some dude that you know will never make it or whatever, it doesn't matter. Get out there, vote. They'll take, you know why? Because when they take it away from you, you'll miss that, you know, right? They will. They can and they will take it away if we don't be vigilant and hang on to these rights. Is that's the thing about rights, folks, is that rights are not guaranteed. You can and you will lose your rights. If you don't exercise your rights, they'll take them away. You know, you have to stand up and fight for them, right? Every time. You got to vote every time, right? And every time somebody even tries to put limits on your rights, you have to fight back with everything you got. Because once they're gone, they're gone. And don't think that this country can't turn into something like Iran. You know, Iran used to be, you know, free and shit. People could walk around and believe whatever they wanted, stuff like that. It's a very secular country. Look at it now. You know, they're fucking executing people for protesting women wearing a fucking headscarf. Right? That is what's getting people murdered now. It can happen here. So this shit is frustrating as fucking hell. It's frustrating as hell, but I don't know. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. So thank you guys all for joining. I really appreciate it. Adios.